You're watching BCTV. We're all about Brantford. You're watching BCTV, Brantford Government Television, a service of Brantford Community Television. This program is brought to you in part through the support of the town of Brantford.
Meeting of the Brantford Planning and Zoning Commission to order. It is Thursday, April 15th, 2021. I've got 7:07 p.m. I'll introduce members of the commission and staff. Commission member John Lust. John, are you here?
John Lust here.
Joe Chadwick, commission member. Are you here?
Joe Chadwick is present.
Fred Russo, commission member. Fred, are you here?
Fred Russo, present.
Okay. Joe Vayuso, commission member. Joe, are you here? I see him.
Mute him.
Okay, and I heard him. Joe, you're here, right? Yeah.
I heard him.
Okay.
Vayuso, present.
Okay, Joe's here. And Marcy Pelusi. Marcy, commission member, you're here, correct?
Marcy Pelusi here.
Thank you. And then our staff this evening, we have our town planner, Harry Smith. Harry, you here?
Here, Harry Smith.
Our assistant planner, Evan Brining. Evan, you're here? Yep, raising his hand. And also our clerk recording secretary, Michelle Martin, as well. And I'm Chuck Andrews, chair. We have a number of public hearings this evening, and I'll ask our secretary to read a notice of public hearings. Marcy?
The Planning and Zoning Commission of the town of Brantford, Connecticut hereby gives notice of public hearings to be held on Thursday, April 15th, 2021 at 7 p.m. by remote technology as authorized by Executive Orders 7B and 7I to consider applications listed below. Information regarding how to participate in the public hearings will be provided on the meeting agenda that will be posted on the town's website at least 24 hours prior to the meeting. I have 7, and I am reading from the second revision. I hope that's correct. Item number 1, application number 21-3.9, zoning map amendment from PDD to IG2 at 569 East Main Street. 595 Corporate Circle owner, tax map J4 block 2 lot 1.3, 573 East Main Street, NF plus W Cook Limited Partnership / Cook / Harrison Family Partnership owners, tax map J4 block 2 lot 1, 16 East Industrial Road, AHB LLC owner, tax map J4 block 1 lot 5.
Marcy, can I interrupt you? I'm sorry. What public are you reading?
I'm reading the second revision that was on here.
Okay.
Is that correct?
Okay. I'm sorry. Keep going. I didn't mean to interrupt.
Okay. Yeah, I found 2, and I assumed that the second was more recent.
Sure.
I think I did. Let me see where I left off. 16 East Industrial Road, AHB LLC owner, tax map J4 block 1 lot 5, 20 East Industrial Road, Peter G. Mandragoras, trustee of the CVP Trust owner, tax map J4 block 1 lot 6, and 26 East Industrial Road, Connecticut Shellfish Company owner, tax map J4 block 1 L7, town of Brantford Planning and Zoning Commission applicant. Item number 2, application number 20-11.3, special exception modification for residential open space development located at Gould Lane, Lamontre Lane Extension, and Louisa Court for modification to restriction on development of units number 24 to 29 to be accessed via Louisa Court. Stony Creek Estates LLC, care of Michael DeGioia, applicant and owner. Item number 3, application number 21-3.4, special exception for an accessory apartment and oversized accessory structure located at 46 Parish Farm Road. Mark Reed, applicant and owner. This is rescheduled to the 5/6/21 meeting. Item number 4, application number 21-3.2, special exception for an accessory apartment located at 548 to 552 Leeds Island Road. Connor Daly, applicant and owner. Item number 6, application number 21-3.6, special exception for a car storage parking lot located at 101 West Main Street, Sound Real Estate LLC, care of Dan Miriam, applicant, 101 West Main Street, Brantford LLC, care of Jeannie Tank, owner. That's rescheduled to 5/6/21 meeting. Item number 6, application number 21-3.10, special exception for an accessory apartment located at 28 Pine Tree Drive. Emily Abruzzo, the applicant Gerald John Bodziak and Emily Abruzzo, owners. That's rescheduled to the 5/6/21 meeting. Item number 7, application number 21-3.2, subdivision modification for a residential open space development located at Gould Lane, Lamontre Lane Extension, Louisa Court for modification to restriction on development of units 24 through 29 to be accessed via Louisa Court. I might have read this already. Stony Creek Estates LLC, care of Michael DeGioia, applicant and owner. At said hearings, all persons will have the right to be heard. A copy of the application materials will be made available at least 24 hours ahead of the meeting at https://www.dropbox.com/home/planning %20, %26, %20 zoning under the folder for this particular meeting date. Written communication should be submitted via email to p-z@brantford-ct.gov by noon of the day before the meeting for posting at the above Dropbox account associated with the town's website.
Chuck Andrews, Chair. Thank you, Marcy.
You're welcome.
We will follow our normal format for public hearings. And by the way, we're going in the order on our agenda. So we have some continued public hearings that will start first. So and the way that proceeds is the applicant goes first, makes his presentation. We will then turn it over to commission members and staff. Staff has a summary report. We'll present a summary of that, open it up for questions from commission members. And after that, then we will open it up to the public. I'm going to ask our assistant planner or our planner to go through the process for participating in these Zoom public hearings, to run through that with you. But essentially, you state your name, make your presentation, make your comments. After the public is done, we'll allow applicant to respond to any public comments, and we may or may not close the public hearing depending on how it goes. With that, Evan or Harry, can you run through and refresh us how the public can participate in the public hearing, in the Zoom public hearing?
Sure. These instructions can be found on the first page of your agenda. If your computer has a microphone for two-way communication, then during a public hearing, if you wish to speak, press raise hand in the participant window. Per the governor's executive order, if you speak, you will need to give your name. If you do not wish to speak, you may type your comments into the chat feature. If you are dialing in by phone and you wish to speak, press *9 to raise your hand. And again, if you wish to speak, you must state your name per the executive order from the governor.
Chuck Andrews, Chair. Thank you, Evan. With that, we'll move to our first public hearing item on our agenda, which is a continued public hearing. This is John Patofsky, applicant, Virginia C. Borgia, owner, 8 Sawmill Road. This is a special exception for grading in connection with the single-family dwelling. This is a continued public hearing that we had kept open. There were some issues regarding drainage and possible concerns about neighboring properties, drainage issues. And is Mr. Mandel here this evening?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, Chuck Mandel, agent for the applicant. Would you like me to start?
Yes, please.
Okay, thank you. Again, Chuck Mandel, agent for the applicant for 8 Sawmill Road. I'm not going to go, most of the commission members probably remember from the past couple of applications, so I don't want to plow the same field. I think we just move on to some new material, if that's okay with the commission. So on April 30th, we submitted a drainage report that was done. We went out and did some topography, had wetlands flagged. We assessed the neighboring property. We did come up, like I said, the report was submitted and handed to the adjoiner's engineer. We submitted some additional worksheets, which Harry can or cannot bring on. We don't really need them right now, Harry, but if the commission wants to see them, we can go ahead and do that. The question was, we had a letter from the town engineer and from Tom Stevens. The word negligible kept coming up, and what was negligible? So in order to assess what was negligible, the drainage report showed that the different, and we looked at the 2, 5, 25, 50, and 100-year storm events. So if we take the 100-year storm event, the change in elevation went from pre-development was elevation 27.35, that's above mean sea level, elevation. With the post-development with the house, the elevation rose to 2737. So that means on the property, we increased that, the structure that we proposed would increase the stormwater by 0.02 of an inch. If you took a bowl and filled it up, let's say it was at 30, and then you added the water post-development, so it would go up 0.02 of an inch, which is about a 1/4 inch. It was a 1/4 inch in height. We went ahead and did the topography. So that 1/4 inch, actually looking at the adjoiner's property, it's on the extreme western edge of his driveway. It encompassed about maybe 15 square feet, and it actually rose on the driveway about 0.3 of an inch. And that event would last about 12 minutes. So that was our definition of negligible. There was no property damage. Actually, it just went onto the driveway, like I said, about a 1/4 of an inch for 12 minutes. We did receive a letter the other day from the applicant's engineer. We didn't revise the plan at that time, but based on the applicant's engineer's letter that we received on April 8th, we went ahead and did revise our plan, and I sent that also to Harry, and I believe the town engineer had looked at the revised computations. So we increased our stormwater collection system by an additional 16 inches, which would accommodate the entire post-development drainage. So as it stands now with the revised plan that you have in front of you that we submitted to the town, there is absolutely no negative increase in the in drainage, and that's where we stand. And we did have a letter from the town engineer, and Harry can read that into the record if no one has seen
that. Chuck Anders, Chair. Thank you, Mr. Mandel. Is that it? Anything else?
Yeah, I mean, I'll go into whatever detail you want, but we've completely mitigated the flooding. And based on the letter from Mr. White, he said the increase in runoff can easily be accounted for, which we agree, with more galleys. So we did increase the size. Until changes are made to the plans to capture the increased runoff, my client will oppose this development. Well, we did account for it, and now it's actually zero increase in runoff off-site.
Okay, Chuck Anders, Chair. Thank you, Mr. Mandel. Harry, is there any comments from staff that you'd like to bring to our attention?
Harry Smith, Town Planner. Yes, I'm trying to bring up, oh boy, my whole Foxit just crashed. So you have to bear with me here. I'm going to try and pull up several documents, but I had several documents teed up for the meeting, and that whole program just died. So this is going to take a little bit. All right.
Evan Brining, Assistant Town Planner. Harry, are they in the Dropbox?
They are in the Dropbox, which I've got accessible here, but I have to pull them up. So let's see. Hang on a second.
I have my screen up if you want me to.
I think it's just easier if I navigate through. So
You got it.
Okay. All right. All right, you should be able to see a memo from the town engineer. It's dated April 14th. This is in response to the information that was submitted by Stevens and Associates. I believe it's prepared by CLA engineers, which I can bring up, but I'm not sure it's really necessary. So that was sent to the town engineer on the 14th. He responded also on the 14th. And the memorandum says, based on the calculations provided by the applicant's engineers, they'll be reducing peak runoff rates to both the wetland and the culvert onto Old Quarry Road, as well as providing water quality through infiltration. This would satisfy section 6.9F, which is a section in the zoning regulations that requires no increase in peak discharge for stormwater. So I think that's been the last crux of discussion back and forth with the abutting property owner and his engineer. You can correct me if you need to, Mr. Mandel, but I think that's the bottom line with this.
Yeah, no, Chuck Mandel. Yes, that completely in my, from what I've gathered from the past commission meetings and from the adjoiner, I believe we have satisfied all requirements.
Okay. So with that, I do have, I can switch over here to a memorandum I prepared back on March 30th with proposed findings and conditions, unless you want to take a look at that after the close of the hearing. I think Mr. Mandel has seen this document.
Yes, I have.
Do you have any concerns with any part of it?
Nope, we are willing to comply with all your comments.
Okay. So I'll leave the commission whether you want me to review this now or later.
We can review it later. Let's see if we have any public comments
Okay.
on this. Okay. Chuck Anderson, Chair. Thank you, Harry. Yeah, are there other questions from any commission members or staff before we open up the public? Hearing none, does any member of the public wish to comment? Evan or Harry, do you recognize anyone? Do you see anyone?
Evan Brining, Assistant Town Planner. I do see the neighbor who has been participating in the past meetings, but I would like to just reiterate, anyone who would like to speak, please use the raise your hand function next to your name. And not sure if the gentleman would like to participate this time. Maybe you could raise your hand if you would. Sure. All right.
Bob Spistler, the neighbor. My engineer is on tonight as well. My only question with what I just heard tonight was flooding over my driveway for 12 minutes and then it would dissipate. Which end of my driveway were you speaking of? Because if you're flooding on the back end of my driveway by my house, my stairs go into my basement right there.
Chuck, you want me to answer that, Mr. Chairman?
Yeah, please.
Okay, well, I guess I'll direct it to you. In regards to that question, that's a moot point now since we are capturing all stormwater. I could answer that. It was actually the western edge of the driveway, and we did shoot an elevation of your stairway going down the walkout basement, and I do have a grade on that. But like I said, I know the commission has a lengthy agenda. I'm not going to get into it. We are mitigating all stormwater, so we're not exacerbating any condition.
Chuck Anderson, thank you, Mr. Mandel. Any other questions or comments?
No, just don't know if my engineer wants to say anything tonight. He's on the, let's see, the 337 number.
Yep, Evan Brining, Assistant Town Planner. I see him. He has his hand raised. I just unmuted him. I believe it was Mr. White. Mr. White, I think you still have to unmute yourself. There you go.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Great. Yep, good evening. My name is Kevin White. I'm the engineer for Bob Spisso on 21 Quarry. And yes, we did receive a revised plan yesterday afternoon. It's not our point at this meeting tonight to say that the calculations are incorrect, and I would imagine that they are. We've never questioned the work that's being done. We've always just questioned the intent, and the intent was that if there was any activity on the lot, that my client not have any effects on his property. And the statement tonight has been that that has taken place. I would assume after the town engineer has looked at this, that is also a correct statement. Again, after receiving it only yesterday, I have not had a chance to take a look at it. But if there's anything that needs or is glaring, I would just like to get something to you guys within the next 2 weeks, but I don't think that there would be a reason tonight to hold up the proceeding on this matter.
Chuck Andrews Chair. Thank you, Mr. White. Well, if we close the public hearing, that's it. So I mean, the intent would be to close the public hearing. We have kept it open quite a while. And we can't take any additional evidence once the public hearing is closed.
And I understand that. I mean, again, we've been looking at this now for almost 6 weeks, I think. We have a reason after the vote, you know, if there's something that we think is drastically wrong, which I don't anticipate that there is. We have other measures that we could take. Great.
Chuck Andrews Chair. Thank you, Mr. White. Evan, are there other members of the public wish to comment on this?
Evan Brining, Assistant Town Planner. I do not see anyone else at this time.
Okay. Chuck Andrews Chair. Thank you. Any further comments by the applicant or commission members?
Chuck Mandel, no further comments.
Or staff. Okay, so then hearing none, then I think we can close this matter as a public hearing. So we'll close item number 1 as a public hearing, and this may be something we can take up later. Thank you, Mr. Mandel.
Thank you very much.
That brings us to item number 2, and that's a matter that which is 56 Stony Creek Road, special exception for grading. This is the old Whitewood School, and this is a public hearing that I believe we've opened, and it's continued to our May 6th meeting. Is that correct, Harry?
That is correct.
Okay, so we're not proceeding with item number 2 on the agenda. That brings us into items number 3 and 4. Did you say something here? I believe, so we're up for items number 3 and 4, which are Stony Creek Estates. This is 47 Gould Lane. This is item number 3 is the special exception modification for residential open space development. And item number 4 is the subdivision modification for the residential open space development. And is the applicant here on that, ready to proceed? Evan, do you see anyone? Harry, you're muted. We cannot hear you. Harry, we cannot hear you.
Okay, I can hear you. Can you hear me
Sorry.
now?
Yes, sorry.
No problem. Good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the commission. My name is Timothy Herbst. I'm an attorney with offices in Orange, Connecticut. I am here tonight on behalf of the applicant, Stony Creek Estates, LLC. With me this evening is Michael DeGioia, who's the Executive Vice President of Donmar Development Corporation, the parent company of this project, and also George Andrews, PELEP, that will be walking you through much of the technical and environmental considerations for the commission this evening. Before we begin, I just wanted to address a procedural issue that I raised earlier today with Harry Smith, your planner, in an email. I would ask that the email be made part of the administrative record. And the one thing I would just call the commission's attention to is that your agenda states, one second. Your agenda states that there's a modification to restrictions on development of units 24 through 29. That would mean that there's a modification of 6 units. If you look at the application that was submitted by Mr. DeGioia and subsequent communications with planning staff, the modification actually pertains to 3 units. So I raised a concern earlier that there might be defective notice in the agenda, and I just have to raise that for purposes of preserving the record, because I at the very least, Mr. Chairman, I think we have to address and or correct the defective notice in some form, so my client is not adversely impacted.
Thank you, Chuck Andrews here. Thank you, Mr. Herbst. Well, let me ask you, are the 3 units included within numbers 24 through 29? You know?
Yes.
Okay. So it's an over-inclusive. It mentions 6, but only 3 of the 6 are impacted. Is that correct?
Correct. Only 3 of those 6 will be
Okay.
impacted.
Let me ask you this, because obviously as the applicant, you're concerned if there's a defective notice, because you could get sued and someone could raise the same issue, if the commission approved this. Is this something that you want to, have us renotice or start over, or how would you like to proceed?
I would just like there to be an acknowledgement on the record that this pertains to 3 units and not 6, because the reference on the agenda also relates to an email that was received by the commission that I also would like to address that had the same connotation.
Okay, yeah, and your email is part of the record, so it's noted. I just didn't want to make sure that, if you were concerned about it, from the other side, if you wanted us to, take the safe route and just delay the whole thing.
I would prefer, my client would prefer to proceed this evening and hopefully come to a favorable resolution. I just needed to, obviously, Mr. Chairman, preserve the record and note that for the record. What I'd like to do at this time...
Should we be specifying the 3 units? Should we be specifying the specific units?
Yes, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask if the assistant planner or whoever is controlling the Zoom to unmute Mr. DeGioia so he can speak specifically to the units impacted for the record.
Harry Smith, Town Planner. I have made Mr. DeGioia and I believe Mr. Andrews, you mentioned, is the other person. They are both co-hosts and can unmute themselves at will during the proceedings of this agenda item.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and commission members, for yielding me time this evening. For the record, my name is Michael DeGioia. I'm here in a representative capacity for Donmar Development Corporation as its vice president. For the record, the units that we are seeking modification for are units number 24, 25, and 26, also known as number 10, 12, and 14 Louisa Court. Thank you.
Excuse me, Mr. Hurt. Oh, there you go. You got it.
What I would like to do, Mr. Chairman, is offer a brief summation of how we're going to approach the presentation tonight. And then at the end of the presentation, after you hear from Mr. DeGioia and George Andrews, I'm going to summarize by responding to comments that you received via email to your town planner from a former town attorney relative to this application. So I will conclude with those comments and then answer any questions the commission might have. But at this time, I'd like to have Mr. DeGioia walk you through the technical components of the application. I would then like Mr. Andrews to walk you through the environmental issues that have been raised and the considerations that have been applied in responding to those concerns, and then I will close it out.
Again, for the record, Michael DeGioia from Donmar Development. So to memorialize exactly what we are seeking to do here, if you were to look at the original approved site plan, units 24, 25, and 26, the difference between the existing grades versus proposed grades vary between 5 and 7 feet. So in essence, those were originally approved as a slab on grade. Now, traditionally, a slab on grade is constructed with only a 42-inch frost wall for frost protection. So in this case, in combination with that, and given the fact that the site plan was developed off of the town GIS, which is an aerial topo, what we have on site is we are, in essence, going to be scraping topsoil off of the existing grade that's there and ending up pouring a full 8-foot concrete foundation wall as we would with a full basement, then backfilling and filling up. The site is already brought up to grade, and then pouring a slab on grade for finished floor. So what we are in essence asking the commission to do is to allow us to install a full foundation, seeing that we are not excavating into the existing grade. We are not encountering any groundwater. Moreover, when we were installing the utilities and the sanitary sewer especially, we excavated to depths between 13 and 14 feet, all the way up into the cul-de-sac. I believe at the time, town engineer John Hofferly was the assistant town engineer and was also inspecting the sewer main installation. We encountered no groundwater. So in pursuant to that, we are seeking we're seeking permission to install a full foundation as opposed to a slab on grade. We still plan to install the liners per the original approval, and nothing in that regard has changed. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to George Andrews, who can speak to the technicalities of the possible environmental concerns. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. My name is George Andrews. I'm with Lorero Engineering Associates. We're in Plainville, Connecticut, and I am a professional engineer and a licensed environmental professional. I thought what I would do is just, I'm not sure how long some of the commissioners have been on board, so I thought I would just give you a very brief background on why we are talking about geomembranes and passive barriers in residential homes and such. So the portion of the subdivision that we're looking at this particular point includes units number 24 through 29. And those 6 units are located down gradient from a prior industrial/commercial facility, which was located off of Acorn Road. And there were activities at that particular parcel that took place. I believe there were perhaps up to 3 different entities over the years. And there were contaminants that were released on the site. The contaminants were introduced to the water table. They traveled down gradient, and the plume from the contaminants basically migrated onto the site and diverged underneath where these units are proposed to be located. So that gives us a little bit of a summary. It was volatile organic compounds, and it's primarily 3 specific compounds that migrated. So the issue that we have with volatile organic compounds is obviously direct ingestion, and that's handled with the water that we have on site. The second means of exposure is through volatilization of the groundwater and intrusion into the buildings. So that's what we're looking to avert at this particular point. And that was a basis for proposing a geomembrane liner underneath the proposed homes and such to mitigate that potential intrusion into the buildings. So at the time the commission took action, there were 6 units. We're looking to build full basements in just 3 of those units. Another component of the commission's approval was that, as Mike mentioned earlier, that the buildings be built slab on grade. We're looking to put foundations, full foundations in 3 of those. So in response to Mike's interest, Lorero looked at the analytical data and prepared a plan that we submitted and submitted it to the town. And that plan includes provisions for essentially a full wrap. So the wrap consists of a geomembrane, and there's a variety of different brands. We went through several of them to identify the specific manufacturers that had permeance resistance to the volatile organic compounds that are present. We identified those in our report, and we prepared specifications on how that material would be applied to the foundations, and the fact that that would actually wrap up on the vertical walls of the foundation as well. Secondly, my experience with EPA and DEEP is that although they are not involved in this particular instance, my experience with them is that they typically look for 2 lines of protection, and we have provided 2 lines of protection. The first being the vapor barrier, and that vapor barrier is a waterproofing system which also retards the intrusion of water should seasonally high water migrate up into the basement area. The second line of defense that we provided is what's called the subslab depressurization system, which is a layer of crushed stone with perforated pipe located in it, and the pipe actually vents up above the roof to the house to ventilate any vapors that would accumulate underneath the slab. So we have done, my firm and myself have done this, used this process on literally millions of square feet of both commercial and residential structures successfully. And we are absolutely certain of the protection that it provides. It's very well documented, and we're very comfortable with applying this particular technology in this particular case. As Mr. DeGioia mentioned, they will, as a result of some grade issues and some additional fill on the site, they are not going to be excavating down into the water table at all. So consequently, the geomembrane that we have proposed would actually be protecting essentially just against vapors, because we wouldn't be expecting any groundwater whatsoever based upon the elevations that he's proposing. With that said, I'd be more than happy to answer any questions that any of you may have.
Chuck Andrews, Chair, thank you. I don't know if any of us have any questions at this time. Mr. Herbst, do you have any? Sure,
I have some concluding comments I'd like to make to the commission before we get to questions, if I may. I'd specifically like to address.
Excuse me, Mr. Herbst, I'm sorry to interrupt. I believe Marcy had a comment she'd like to make.
I just have questions about the VOCs in general. That's technical to what Mr. Andrews was saying. If I can ask them after concluding remarks or before, I just, let me know when.
Go right ahead, Commissioner. I'm sorry. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
So the original VOCs, was that a gas or was that an actual liquid that was, that went into the ground from the up source?
Yes. Are we both able to speak? Are we both on?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Yes, indeed. It was a liquid, and the primary solvent was TCA 111 trichloroethane. And it's a liquid solvent that's typically used for degreasing.
Right. I guess I'm just trying to understand what the actual contamination was and what elevation it was discharged at to get a sense of what elevations the plumage reached across the site, because the concern seems to be at the groundwater level. And I'm just trying to understand if this was something that went through the soils and if soils were removed, you know, as far as just the physical contamination of the soils as a result of the VOCs.
So in looking at the documentation that's available at this point, there were at least 3 different orders that were forwarded to the owner or operator of the subject parcel, which was where the source was released. And there were actions that were taken. I don't have the specific details of the actions that were taken up gradient on that private property. However, based upon the concentrations that we see in the groundwater and how the plume has migrated, the source of the contamination, certainly in my opinion, has ceased. And the reason that I say that is we can typically watch a plume migrate, and when we see a hot edge, if you will, high concentration core run through the groundwater as it's traveling down gradient, and we see on the trailing edge lower concentrations, that clearly indicates that the source has been removed and that plume is continuing to migrate and dissipate as it goes down gradient. So the contamination was discharged up gradient at that site. It's a heavier than water contaminant. So it dropped down to the water table, sat probably somewhere in some organics, and continued to release in the groundwater as that plume continued to move down toward this site. Once that was removed, we no longer have that source, and through natural attenuation, the expectation is that it will self-clean, and we are seeing evidence of that based upon the decreasing concentrations in some of the monitoring wells.
Okay, that's what I was trying to understand, whether it was something that went straight down into the water or, you know, went sort of laterally. But it sounds like you're telling it went vertically down to the water table, and we don't have to worry about sort of lateral movement of that. And I guess my other question pertains to the off-sourcing of gases and, you know, I understand the venting system that you're proposing and the separation. Are there, you know, I know with radon tests, you often homeowners test. Are there any ways to test for off-gassing of this system continuously, since this is something that's going to, you know, would stay with the home moving forward, to know that there is no gas in the home as opposed, you know, and that the vent system is working properly?
Yeah, that's a great question. And what you suggested is a third measure of protection. And I mentioned earlier, we typically provide 2 means, and that would be a choice. If I had gone with just a vapor barrier and didn't have the subslab depressurization system, I would have picked up indoor air monitoring as a second means of protection. In lieu of that, we selected and opted to go with the geomembrane, so a passive barrier, as well as the subslab depressurization system. And there's a specific reason that I'll just very quickly explain. The reason that we typically shy away from indoor air sampling is because there are so many sources of the volatile organic compounds within the home itself, in carpeting, in paints, and in a variety of different products, that we come up with a lot of false positives when we implement that measure. So I typically usually try to stay away from that because of some failures that I've experienced in the past. And I typically opt to go with the belt and suspenders outside of the building foundation.
That was very helpful. Thank you.
Certainly.
If I could just jump in with a quick question while we're on this train, Joe Chadwick speaking. Will there be any sort of testing and observation while the membranes are being put in place? I know rock and dirt work is kind of notorious for getting away with stuff in terms of installations. And this is more like a roof than it is anything else. And it's not like you're going to send somebody out there to patch it up with a bucket of roofing cement.
Yes, exactly. And each of the manufacturers of the products that we recommended in our report have QA/QC systems associated with the products that would be selected for this particular application. And there are a variety of different methods, and some of the manufacturers do visual, some of them do smoke testing, and some of them do, for example, gas testing, where they'll actually inject a gas and then search for that particular gas, typically helium. And so in our report, we defined that the system would be installed in accordance with the quality assurance and quality control measures recommended by that particular manufacturer. And I believe I cited probably about 5 different manufacturers, and I would suggest that there's probably 5 different QA/QC systems. Each one has a very slight variance. But that's an important component of the process, indeed.
Chuck Andrews, Chair. Other questions from commission members?
Fred Russo would like to ask a question, Chuck.
Absolutely.
I was just curious to the engineer, what is the life expectancy of that geomembrane?
So the life expectancy that we typically use is 30 years. I've been in the business for about 35 years, and I started installing them when I was first here, and I've dug some of those up, and they're still in excellent condition. The reason that we typically use 30 years is that's the monitoring period that the state of Connecticut requires for utilization of this, which is typically referred to as an engineered control. So I comfortably feel that that's where the 30 years comes from. However, in this particular case, we have a plume with a core, with a central hotspot, if you will, that has moved from the building where it was originally sourced down, and the last round of data that I had for that was around 2013. So it moved from off-site all the way down right to the center of the cul-de-sac where the homes are, and it will continue to move and dissipate and reduce in concentration down gradient, such that what's left behind is trace levels of VOCs, and consequently you wouldn't need the vapor barrier at that point anyhow. So the 30 years is more than long enough for this plume to naturally attenuate and to further migrate further away from this this subject area.
Thank you.
I have one last question. So as the plume attenuates and migrates, does it actually weaken in strength but expand in size?
Typically it does. It will, through dispersion, a variety of different mechanisms of dispersion, it will weaken in concentration. And furthermore, there's natural biodegradation that occurs in the subsurface. And if we waited long enough, it would dissipate all the way to zero as a result of the natural attenuation, as we call it. So the natural attenuation is dissipation, as well as the natural biodegradation from indigenous organisms and such that consume the chemical, consume the product.
Do you have an anticipated timeline? Like, are we talking 5 years, 10 years, 20 years? Just ballpark.
I don't on this. That's an art all in itself, and that would probably consume the cost of a home for me to actually study with a model. It's quite an involved modeling system, but it's a great question.
Chuck Andrews, Chair. Thank you, Marcy. Question, you mentioned a couple of times the DEP standards. Are you under any orders or under regulation by DEP? And if so, what is it that you are doing for them?
My apologies. I just recognized I haven't been introducing myself each time. George Andrews. We are not under order through DEP. The original occupant or leasee or owner of the release parcel was under order at one time. They're actually the owner of this property should not be responsible for this groundwater plume that migrated from an off-site situation. So the DEP has a specific program where they will not go after innocent off-site landowners that are negatively impacted by a migrating plume from an off-site source. So Mike actually is not under order at all to do this. And in fact, the concentrations that we saw very early on within the areas of the houses are below the action levels. So the action that he's taking really is in an abundance of caution.
Okay, just Joe, thank you. Any other questions from any commission members or, no, the applicant still needs to, wanted to summarize, I believe Attorney Herbst had some concluding comments.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman. Before Attorney Herbst summarizes, I'd just like to make one more point for the commission. So originally in the approval, there's an area of higher concentrations. If you look at the site plan, the units are arranged in such an array where they avoid the higher concentration levels. So again, as I'd like to underscore, as Mr. Andrews said, everything that all the precautions that we are taking at this point are in an abundance of caution. And as he has also said, is sort of a belt and suspenders approach, meaning that there's two prongs of protection. So with that being said, I would just like to remind the commission that these units, irregardless of where that slab is located, whether it's at elevation 0 or at elevation 8, meaning the first floor, we are still, based on the grades that are on site, we are not digging into the ground essentially. We're essentially scraping topsoil off and pouring footings on top of the existing grade that originally was there. So we're not digging into the ground, irregardless of the fact that even when we were there running utilities and 13 and 14 feet deep into the existing grade, we encountered no groundwater. So again, our intention is to be able to construct a full foundation as opposed to, in essence, scraping away topsoil, pouring a footing, a full foundation, and then backfilling that up, all while encumbered within a liner, and then pouring a slab on grade, as opposed to having that slab 8 feet lower at the existing grade that's there. Thank you.
Thank you. I think Attorney Herbst, you can proceed.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. And just in conclusion, I want to take this opportunity to respond to a March 29th, 2021 email that was received from Attorney Ann Catino, directed to the town planner and to the town attorney. This was forwarded to my client, Michael DeGioia, on the following day, Tuesday, March 30th, 2021. And then subsequent to that, Mr. Smith, your town planner, sent an email to my client on Friday, April 9th, 2021, with Attorney Catino and Town Attorney Anaskovich on copy, basically advising my client that at your meeting of April 1st, the commission formally adopted the request for additional information in the email from Attorney Catino from March 29th as information, quote, deemed necessary to make an informed review, close quote, and that's citing a portion of section 9.8B4 of your regulations. I have an obligation to respond to that, and I do take issue with Attorney Catino's email for the following reasons. as this commission knows, Section 9.8 of the Brantford zoning regulations governs the special exception process. And that last language that was quoted, it's in the last sentence of 9.8B4, where it says, quote, require the submission of additional information as deemed necessary to make an informed review of the application, close quote. And that's referring to what the Planning and Zoning Commission of the town of Brantford can require. I really think it's important to note the context of where that language sits in your regulation. And I think we have to look at the regulation in its entirety, because the section of the regulations that were partially cited begin by saying that, quote, the commission may, in accordance with the requirements of these regulations and the appendix of these regulations, consider those things. So I think that's important because Section 9.8F clearly articulates the criteria for approving or disapproving a special exception application. Now, what I take issue with is that much of what is contained in Attorney Catino's email, granted that it references a previous approval, are items the commission, or that she's claiming, should consider, but they're not really codified in this section of the regulations, the 9.8F that I previously referenced. And we cannot take action that is based upon assumption. We need to make sure that this special exception application must be reviewed in the context of what is required under the regulations, and we deal with the actual versus the perceived or hypothetical. I think based upon the conversation we have had tonight before the commission and how Mr. DeGioia and Mr. Andrews have responded to some of these concerns, I think it should be noted that we are not attempting to relitigate the approval. In point of fact, the exercise tonight is, as Mr. DeGioia said and Mr. Andrews said, we are using the suspenders and the belt. We are applying the abundance of caution to specifically address these assumptions that have been made. And I think it's significant to point out that if the decision of the commission is predicated exclusively upon groundwater concerns, this is not the sine qua non in addressing these concerns. I think it's important to note for the record that from an administrative standpoint, your town engineer, your assistant town engineer, and various permitting departments within the town on an administrative basis are going to review much of what Mr. Andrews discussed tonight once implemented by Mr. DeGioia and his construction team. They are going to vet those proposals and determine if additional information or backup support or even modifications might be required to further address those concerns. So I think that's important to note, that we should, at the same time, while the commission looks at this and considers this, have faith in your town engineer and assistant town engineer to exercise their duties and functions to address those very concerns that were raised by Attorney Catino's March 29th, 2021 email. We believe that this proposed modification and this requested special exception fully comports with the requirements under Section 9.8F of your regulations. We believe that the applicant and his environmental consultant have more than met the burden to justify these modifications. And I want to again reemphasize that these modifications are not relitigating a previous approval. They are applying an abundance of caution. With that, Mr. Chairman, I want to thank you, and I will take any questions that the commission may have.
Thank you, Mr. Herbst. I'll just have one quick comment. I appreciate your comments. That said, I think Mr. Andrews is appears to be a very qualified licensed environmental protector professional. And, I don't think our engineer is a LEP. I would certainly want a level of comfort having a town licensed environmental protection professional look at this as well, because that's what we're talking about here, particularly since you emphasize this is not even regulated by the DEP. In this whole item, it's not like we're making this stuff up. They were part of the conditions of approval, and this whole thing is you're seeking modifications of the original one. So So it's not like, this is new stuff. I'm not necessarily disputing anything, but I certainly, and I don't know, frankly, if I'm going to recommend that our attorney and LEP look at this stuff. Maybe they don't need any what they'd asked for, but if they do, I would certainly want them to have it. So in any event, that's just my quick reaction to where your comments were. Harry, did you want to review the staff report?
Harry Smith, Town Planner. Yes, I'd like to just quickly go through. Some of this has already been discussed in terms of the process and the background, but just by way of review, I'm going to share my screen quickly and just walk through my staff comments. So should be able to see in front of you a staff memorandum dated April 8th. And just to reiterate possibly for the record, this development is an open space residential development under the zoning regulations. It did require and receive a special exception approval as well as a subdivision approval in 2014. My understanding is several of these the approval conditions were appealed by the developer to Superior Court, and there was a stipulation of judgment to settle the appeal issued by the court in October 27, 2014, which modified the approvals that had been granted previously by the commission. I've included that as an attachment to my staff report, as well as the amended final resolutions of the approval. Also, there were modifications to the both of these approvals in 2018. They were fairly minor. One was modifications to the configuration of a stormwater drain outlet, and the other was to substitute the use of asphalt curbing for for cement concrete curbing. So I've also included 2 sheets from the last approved plans. There were a lot of discussion. I don't know how familiar the commission is with the layout of the subdivision, since we haven't talked about it for a couple of years, but I can put one of the maps up as commission feels necessary to discuss it further. There was also in 2018 a proposal to amend the requirement for on-slab construction, at least in some of the units, but that was withdrawn at that point in time. So the changes that are proposed now have already been described fairly extensively. One thing I'm a little unclear on is, and I don't think it's in any of the application materials to date, so I just pose a question of what wording in the existing approvals, the amended resolutions, would need to be modified. I was wondering what the applicant is seeking to modify in terms of actual wording in those 2 amended resolutions. So maybe someone can respond to that afterwards. So I'll just continue on quickly. I'm still in the process of clarifying whether the changes proposed would need any modification to the inland wetlands permit. It's entirely possible they will not. I'm just trying to clarify that. I think I will switch over to memorandum that the commission received previously, and this is contains the email referred to by Attorney Herbst. So I will just put that up here. It's here for reference. I'm not going to try and characterize or enter into any discussion about the environmental issues involved. That's really beyond my expertise level. Just simply to note that in proposing this to the commission as additional information that they decided to require of the applicant, I did read the entire section 9.8B4, not just the words that were in the email sent to the applicant. So with that, I think I will stop here. It seems likely that we would possibly want to review some of the discussion that's occurred tonight with town council, but I'll leave that to the commission to let me know how you would like to proceed.
Chuck Indus here. Thank you, Gary. Before we open up to the public, are there any further questions or comments from commission members?
We have just some additional comments if we might. Mr. Chairman, as you indicated, there was a question about whether town council would review this if the recommendation is to continue the public hearing. I just want to clarify, when we say town council, we mean the town attorney, correct?
I think so. And whoever.
Harry Smith, my understanding is he is referred to as town council, Harry Smith, town planner.
Right.
I just want to make sure it's not a former town attorney. I want to make sure it's the current town attorney. That's why I'm raising the issue.
I think it's Attorney Yanukovych, right? I mean, that's
okay.
That's who's.
I just wanted to clarify that for the record.
That would be the person I would reach out to on behalf of the commission if they directed me to do so.
Right. And just so it's clear, my expectation is we will continue this as a public hearing, just for, this, for further consultation with our attorney and our LEP. So.
Before we go any further, Harry Smith, town planner, maybe I could just reiterate my question. Attorney Herbst, is there anything in the existing amended resolutions for the two approvals that you believe need to be modified in terms of wording to accommodate what's being requested?
My initial review would suggest no, but I'd like to reserve the right, if this hearing is going to be continued, to memorialize that in writing to the commission if that is in fact the case.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Any Chuck Industry, anything else from commissions or staff? If not, then are there any members of the public that wish to comment?
Evan Brining, Assistant Town Planner. If any members of the public would like to speak, please use the raise your hand function next to your name on the participant list, or you can indicate in the chat as well. I do not see anyone that would like to participate at this time.
Chuck Industry, thank you, Evan. Okay, with that then, I think, is the commission okay with continuing this matter as a public hearing? Again, I think there are some outstanding questions. We had asked for certain additional information or through our LEP. They have not provided it, and perhaps it's worth looking at this. Town council and our LEP to look at this. They can review this presentation and determine if additional information is needed or if something else is needed based on what is said this evening. So that my thought is we would like to continue this just because it just sounds like methyl ethyl bad stuff here is out there. And I like to have the right people looking at this stuff from our point of view. Does that sound okay with everyone?
That sounds all right with me, Chuck. I think we need some guidance on this.
Okay, thanks.
I can go either way. I have enough information to be able to make a decision based on what I heard tonight.
Okay, I would like to, anyone else? I've heard nothing but good, but frankly, I'd like an independent review of them by someone who's qualified to do it, with credentials similar to Mr. Andrews. With that, then, we'll continue this matter as a public hearing, to our May 6th hearing?
Harry Smith, town planner, yes, that's the next meeting.
Okay, great. So, Mr. Herbst, that'll work out with you guys? You available then?
I will make myself available. And also, on your next item, one of those properties involves a client of mine, so I'd like to just reserve the opportunity, if possible, to be able to unmute if necessary.
Okay, you're talking about item number 5, or? Oh, okay. The next item on the agenda. Oh, okay.
Yes, Mr. Cook is my client.
Oh, okay, great. Thank you. Okay, so then what we'll do is we'll continue items number 3 and 4 to our May 6th public hearing. It's the 47 Gould Lane being continued. Keep the hearings open to our May 6th public hearing. So that then brings us to item number 5, and that is item number 5 is a Planning Zoning Commission zoning map amendment to delete the PDD, what was commonly known as the Costco PDD, the Exit 56 PDD, to delete that and to restore, at least for now, as the prior in the surrounding IG2 zone. And I'm going to give, this is a commission sponsored application, and just give a little background of what this is about. I think back when it was in 2015, the commission approved a PDD for this Exit 50 site, for commonly known as the Costco PDD. And that application was approved. The developers went to wetlands, and the wetlands application ended up being withdrawn. Nothing happened. And the bottom line is the project was never pursued. One of the owners requested an amendment to the regulations, which we actually approved, to allow us to extend the time that we had to submit the site plan, but that was, and we approved that amendment. But the bottom line is we did not, nothing was submitted within the time frame of the regulations. So then what happened is we did get an inquiry from a realtor on behalf of Mr. Cook's property saying, what can we do with the property? So we did designate that, send that to our town attorney. Hey, we got this PDD, but the master plan's expired. So what can they do with the property? And he wrote us an email and returned and looked at the case law. And the answer was essentially nothing. You can't do anything because the PDD displaced the IG2. So that is the zone. But frankly, the way the PDD process works, if the master plan expires, then you can only do what's in the master plan. The master plan is expired, so you can't do anything. So right now, all those properties in the PDD technically can't build anything. So the thought was, okay. And then we also got an inquiry from a letter from the Economic Development Commission sort of around this time saying, hey, you guys, you should look at Exit 56, fair comment. So that kind of also stimulated, at least getting the ball rolling about what should we do with Exit 56. So it seems like the first step should be at least and the quickest thing is to at least get rid of the PDD, the designation, and rezone it back to the way it was, a sort of status quo. That would seem to be relatively uncontroversial. So that's what this is. And then the expectation is, and frankly, expectation of this public hearing, that interested property owners could, chime in and say, even though it's not part of this application, that's the understanding, could chime in and say, hey, here's other development opportunities. These are future changes that we want you to consider, or maybe we will propose our own application later on down the road. But I thought this is about Exit 56, is about the Costco PDD. So we got to have a public hearing to do this. So let's just sort of open it up. So with that was my expectation, in sort of, it's in let's hear from the property owners and as part of this, even though with the understanding that we're not adopting any zones other than IG2, that's in the legal notice. That's what we're doing. But the expectation is that perhaps further on, some additional proceedings could take place. But with that, Harry, I'll turn it over to you as staff to kind of go through the presentation, anything I missed.
Okay. Harry Smith, Town Planner. I am going to share my screen and just walk quickly through some of the technicalities of the application. So if you bear with me. So you should be able to see a map of essentially along the bottom of the map is East Industrial Road running from west to east, and a portion of Leeds Island Road. Under my cursor is what's known as the Stop and Shop, with a couple of other businesses in this complex. So these are the properties that currently are part of the PDD that's been referred to. There are 5 of them. They were read out and noted in the legal ad that was read at the beginning of the meeting, so I'm not going to go over that again. But these are the ones that are proposed for redesignation to an General Industrial 2, IG2 zoning classification. And they do include property owned. I guess I'll go through it by now formerly Cook Limited Partnership and Cook Harrison Family Partnership, 595 Corporate Circle, 569 East Main Street. That property continues, I believe, down here. There's property owned here at 20 East Industrial Road, 16 East Industrial Road, and 26 East Industrial Road. There's 5 properties involved. It's pretty much that simple. In terms of a staff report, I just provided some considerations for the commission in terms of the plan of conservation and development. Some statements that are in chapter 10, as well as referring to the economic development map that's on page 89 of the plan of conservation and development, which I can show you in a second. Also, just the recitation of what is the comprehensive plan of zoning, and just pretty standard comment. But just to note that the area that is currently PDD was zoned IG2, I believe starting in 1973 through 2015 when the PDD was approved. I will note that in the process, even though the master plans expired, the PDD, as was mentioned, is still active. The expiration of the master plan did eliminate any official status. Just going back to the map here for a second. There was an access road that ran roughly around here as part of the master plan for the PDD. So that road has been eliminated by virtue of the expiration of the master plan. And this application won't affect that, of course. That's already happened. But just to note that my understanding is that the commission, in approving this application back to IG2, tacitly agrees to the potential traffic impacts of any of the allowed uses. Of course, that was a zoning designation for decades. The Connecticut Department of Transportation also have a role in reviewing the impact of any large developments that would access any of the state highways, East Main Street, and a portion of Leeds Island Road, since they're state highways. These are the typical considerations for action. I just note for the commission, there are 2 errors here. Quasi-legislative should just read legislative, and quasi-judicial should read just legislative.
Legislative.
So I've proposed, should you choose to go ahead, a suggested motion. And with that, I will just refer to the economic development map in the plan of conservation development, showing this area with industrial designation, noting the existing PDD and approximately the location that it's currently exists in. So thank you.
Chuck Andrews, Chair. Thank you, Harry. Before we open up to the public, are there any questions, comments from commission members? Hearing none, let's then open it up to the public. Evan, do you want to recognize members of the public?
Evan Brining, Assistant Town Planner. Anyone that would like to speak, I'd like to ask that you use the raise your hand function next to your name on the participant list or indicate in the chat. It looks like we have one already. Mr. Cook, when you're ready.
Yes, good evening. Wayne Cook, I'm a owner of one of the properties under consideration. The first thing I'd like to request, though, is that a statement be given by Mr. Perry Maresca, the Economic Development Coordinator Chairman, Economic Development Commission Chairman. And this is largely a town-sponsored initiative. And then after Mr. Maresca says what he would like to, I'd like to comment on it, and mine's going to be in two parts, maybe part tonight and part, and another night should you continue it. But I think I have to speak in two parts, but first I'd like to defer to Chairman Maresca.
Chuck, I just share. Thank you, Mr. Cook. So I understand, Evan, can we recognize, is Mr. Maresca ready to speak, and then allow him to comment, and then I think Wayne would like to follow up. That's my understanding.
Sure. Evan Brining, Assistant Town Planner. Perry, I think you are unmuted.
Thank you. Yes, I would like to speak first, and I would like to add something afterwards. So as long as I can speak on two occasions on this, one as Economic Development Chairman. A letter I received April 1st is dated, Dear Commissioners, as you are aware, the undersigned has retained by several property owners along the Exit 56 interchange who wish to have their thoughts heard regarding the rezoning of the same. In addition to the parties who retained me, I have also been granted permission from several other owners along this corridor and interested purchasers to encompass their views and hopes for Exit 56. Please find this correspondence as the voice you sought to hear from the citizens. At the outset, I want to thank staff, this commission, and especially Town Attorney Anaskovich for correcting and clarifying the dire situation Exit 56 sits in with a null and void PDD as its underlying zone. I want to also thank Mr. Perry Maresca and the Economic Development Commission for getting this situation on the radar of our town and this commission. As stated at your last Planning and Zoning Commission meeting by Attorney Anaskovich, through Town Planner Harry Smith, it is the legislative duty of this commission to establish standards for Exit 56, which, as it stands, has none. It has been the position of Chairman Andrus that the owners in the area should be heard prior to a decision being made. However, the statement by Commissioner Russo should also not be ignored. Commissioner Russo pointed out that owners come and go, and it is the role of this commission to do what is right for the town. Thankfully, what is right for the town is also what is being proposed by the owners and potential purchasers. At the outset, while the current and future owners of several large parcels of land to Exit 56 join in this petition, it cannot be lost that this is not the first time the zoning of Exit 56 has been brought to the attention of this commission. Throughout the past two Planning and Zoning Commission hearings, it has been frequently relayed by Chairman Andres that the decision to implement a hybrid zone at Exit 53 came after extensive research and presentation through a collaboration of many of its owners. Simultaneously, with regards to Exit 56, there has been representation that the Commission has no idea what is being sought. The owners along Exit 56 respectfully disagree. The approved hybrid zone of Exit 53 was brought before the Planning and Zoning Commission, joining only 4 property owners, multiple of which are owned by the same owners through different entities, and only consisting of approximately 25 acres. In addition, the presentation of this hybrid zone put this commission in the uncomfortable position of making a difficult decision to go against the town's own plan of conservation and development. While seemingly this is irrelevant to the review of Exit 56, it should not be forgotten that during every step of the process of the Exit 53 application, the owners along Exit 56, whether individually or through their attorneys, objected to the application while pointing out how such a zone would be more beneficial in an area such as Exit 56. The Commission has heard numerous times, whether at the public hearing of October 17th, 2019, or through their joint memorandum in opposition dated November 7th, 2019, that the previous Exit 56 IG2 zone was obsolete and stagnant. It was presented and still remains that the owners of 200 plus acres of land in the area were united in seeking a fresh view of the zone. The Commission has heard and it is reiterated that sections 3 and 14 of the Plan of Conservation and Development, Exit 56 is highlighted as a potential beacon in the gateway into Brantford with its 5-way interchange. Approved Exit 53 was highlighted as broken and one of the town's major sorries. It was also pointed out in the POCD Section 10 that there was a call to promote appropriate economic development near the I-95 interchanges. For suggestion purposes, please find attachment B. I think you all have that, a proposal of permitted uses for the new IG-HR zone. Said proposal takes into account the current glut of undeveloped yet economically viable land around exit 56, with an allowance of uses to pump new life into a dying area. In addition, such a proposal still leaves this commission with the ability to weigh in on certain proposals through a special exemption process, allowing a joint community and government approach to zoning. In addition, we have included as attachment C, again, you have these, as proposed modification to the permitted uses of the IG2 zone. This proposal can be used as an alternative or a stepping stone to the IG-HR zone. If clarification is needed, this joint proposition is not intended to be a second guessing of previous decisions of the town. It is, however, a call to action. The Planning and Zoning Commission has an opportunity and the legislative authority to correct something long ignored. It is very rare to have property owners, the Economic Development Commission, and elected officials aligning with the same view. Therefore, on behalf of my clients, the adjoining property owners who have consented to this writing, and future purchasers in the area, I strongly urge this commission to consider the above for the benefit of all in Brantford. Thank you, and it was written and signed and sent by Nicholas Minjone, Esquire. And CC was sent to me and to Bill Anaskovich, our town attorney. So that is the letter. I do want to talk a little bit later if other some comments are made and whatnot as Chairman of Economic Development. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Can I ask you one question? You read the letter, and that letter, by the way, is in the record. I have a paper copy of it myself, and it's there. So we have it, and there are attachments. So we do have that. So just confirming that. But the question I had is, Mr. Minjone says, I've been retained by several property owners, but he never identifies who they are. Do you know who he's speaking on behalf? I think that would be helpful to know.
I know that he's had conversation. I know that, well, I mean, maybe Attorney Herbst could answer that better than I. But I do know that he is Mr. Cook's attorney. I know that he's had conversations with the other property owners. I don't know to what extent and what he is able to disclose of those conversations, but I don't know beyond that.
I could add to that what you in fact said is accurate. And beyond that, I would not be in a position to comment on who Attorney Minjone is representing in any other capacity, because we share one client, but we don't share all the clients. And that would, of course, be protected by the attorney-client privilege.
Thank you, Mr. Herbst. It's helpful to know who he's speaking on behalf. That's all. So with that, I guess we can go back to Mr. Cook. My understanding that's Mr. Cook wanted to proceed. Start with the reading of that letter, and then we'll go back to Mr. Cook. Mr. Cook are ready to proceed?
Muted.
Mr. Cook, I think you have to unmute yourself. I've tried to. There you go.
I think I'm okay. And now I need a screen share, please.
Let me make you a co-host, Mr. Cook. Your screen. So I should be able to do that now.
Can you see the full screen?
I can.
Yes.
Here's the exemplar.
You know, as a couple of the commission members will remember, Chairman and Commissioner Vayuso, I've been on this quite a while, this whole property development issue at 56, and it's been quite a journey, not always the most comfortable. I started in earnest back in 2008 at the meetings concerning the town plan of development then. I don't believe that anyone was there then other than the two commissioners I mentioned. But it started me on a I don't know what you call it, an odyssey of let me put it this way. What I'm about to tell you is not going to be comfortable, but the chairman asked that the property owners would like to express what they would like to see up there. So on behalf of my family, which is, my immediate family and my extended family to a certain extent, I'm going to share what I would like to see up there at, where we are at Exit 56. The first part of it would be basically, actually both of them relate to make the process fair. And it's going to relate to everything eventually, so bear with me. And you say, well, why isn't the process fair? I mean, what's so unfair about the process that I see? And why is that important to the discussion tonight? So let me just proceed. And again, I'm going to use terms that may make you bristle a little bit, but they shouldn't, because I use the same terms in front of the people that I'm referring them to. And they understand my intent. It's not to be derogatory. It's because I honestly think they apply. And as we go on, you'll see. Again, it's going to be divided into two sections. The first one is, why isn't what's going on fair? And then the second part, whether we do it tonight or another night, is what can we do to make it fair at Exit 56 in the area? So I'll start off, and again, please indulge me. I don't know why I can't. How Branford Green Cult unfairly and dishonestly controls the plan of conservation and development. It all starts at the POCD level. And I've said this many, many times, and I've fought many, many times at POCD meetings. The zoning process in this town, works fine on most occasions. But when people don't want it to work, they'll make sure that it won't work. And the members of this green cult, and I call them that, and there's a reason why, they devote themselves to make sure that the POCD stops those things that they don't want to happen. Now, I define a cult as a group of individuals with closed membership, extreme and uncompromising perspectives and philosophies, and contempt for critical thinking and opposing views. Two representatives in the town already are the Clean Energy Committee and the Coastal Resiliency. And I've told them both, guys, you act like a cult. You don't care what anyone thinks. All you care about is yourself and your own agenda. So if the name fits, wear it. Who is the green cult? Well, they're the far left environmentalists with political influence over the first selectman, not just the current one, but the former one, other public officials. They're characterized by an obsession with open space, man-made global warming. There's no compromise there, man-made, and stopping development except where they want it to go. Here's some of the members. Maybe I got a few of them wrong. I think a few of them are in attendance tonight, but they largely represent themselves during the Costco hearings as the Branford Citizens for Responsible Development. Penny Bellamy, name's familiar. She's, I believe, the leader. And you probably know a number of the other ones, some town officials, some not, a couple attorneys. And I know them all. And, I talk to them. We're not on real friendly terms because I don't like their methods, but this is generally who I refer to with exception as Branford's Green Cult. Now, here's a recent example of how the Green Cult operates. And with all respect to Chairman Andres, his account of what happened during Costco was grossly glossed over. Costco just didn't pull out of wetlands. And with all honesty, Chairman, you know that. This is what happened, and it's important you know this. I struggle with bringing this up tonight, but I have to because it's part of the history. So here's one example of how the Green Cult operates. It wasn't long after Costco got into wetlands that Steve Mazzacane of the Branford 7 uncovered a plethora of evidence showing that there was corruption, collusion, and lies within the Wetlands Commission itself. It's irrefutable. It's so irrefutable that we're in federal court right now. And it was based upon a simple fact that the wetlands director at the time, Diana Ross, along with Dan Shapiro, the commissioner, the chairman of the commission, took the peer review, the independent peer review. Now, you should know what that means. And they doctored it brutally. I mean, just blatantly doctored it so that Costco would be denied. I mean, come on. What third world country do we live in? And it's right in front of you, folks. That's Diana Ross's writing. She admitted to it to the commission members, and here we are. The other thing is the exact language from BCRD to deny Costco mysteriously ends up in the independent peer review. How did it get there? No commissioner asked for it. Well, you know who did it? It was Diana. She says that I did it, and her partner in crime, whatever you want to call it, was Penny Bellamy. She showed her the tricks. Penny Bellamy, she's one for the books. We all know Penny. She was DeRoss's campaign manager when he ran the whole show. And she made a mess out of the whole Tabor property. And that cost the town $20 million. It's still a mess in some ways. But she took Diana under her wing and said, I know how to do this. We can alter documents and we can make it go our way, because I did the same thing during Tabor. And I even had to admit to it in court that I did it. And it's right there in the testimony. So Penny, you're not getting away from this one. POCD in this town, quite frankly, and I followed it closely, and those people who know me know I followed it closely, is born in a town hall culture of dishonesty. It's that simple. It's irrefutable. This was what the first administration was like. This is our former first selectman, Uncle Ross. Would you want to deal with him when it came to selling property or taxes? This is a conversation he and I were having. Here's a conversation I was having with an RTM member. That's something to be really proud of, isn't it? I mean, she just did it when she felt like it. So what does that tell you? That we're a transparent and above board government? I don't think so. So how does the green cult control the town plan, you might be asked? How do they really do it? Well, the first thing is the first selectman and town hall staff, in this case, town planner Smith, I think it was shortly after he arrived, picked the members of the staff, handpicked them. And, I asked him at the time, I said, Harry, how'd you pick them? Well, I don't know. Well, I don't know how Harry knows how to pick anybody for this level of an ordeal when he just got into town a month or two earlier. He didn't know the people. So who ends up on the board? Well, who ends up are a bunch of green cult members, because they're just selectively, picked. And then a couple of passive members that just go along with anything. And in this case, even the economic development director in this town, Terry Elton, and he and I had our share of go-rounds. Even he was a green cult member. The result is that the Plan of Conservation and Development caters to the anti-development agenda of a small minority, and it disregards the majority of citizens. And that was very clear in Costco. And during the initial information gathering of all the Plan of Conservation, the green cult members, they dominate the hearings. They all show up. They all, fill out the surveys and all this. So it's clearly skewed, and it monopolizes the entire plan. You know what your plan looks like, Planning and Zoning Commission. You know exactly what it looks like. You address the coastal issues, protect the natural resources, you preserve open space, you promote sustainability and resilience. Even the other things that normally wouldn't deal with green or environmental issues. You have to have green neighborhoods, and you have to have green business development. And the worst part is, or the other part is, the economic development is completely minimized. You give it no consideration whatsoever. And I am a firsthand witness to that. Not only is it minimized, it's misrepresented, and it's lied about. And I got proof after proof after proof of that. The language inserted in the plan manipulates the town plan to control the zoning process and to undermine property rights. I'll argue that until I'm old and gray. No representation on the town plan committee is from the development or the commercial realty development community. None. Nobody on that whole POCD committee knew anything about development or commercial realty or how it works or how complex it is. And the result is that you just lack analysis. You don't understand it, and your vision just completely, undermines the possibilities that Brantford has. For example, there's no study or knowledge in the plan. Look at the plan of any interchange development whatsoever. Although binding restrictions were tried to be inserted and were inserted by the Green Cult into the plan to restrict development at 56. Here we come back to what I'm saying, but they wanted it at 53. Why? Because a lot of them live in Stony Creek, and they got this thing going on for like decades that they don't want 56 developed, even though they live 3 miles away. And I ask them, what's your problem with that? And they just look at me like, well, we need a problem. We just want to do it because it's fun. Oh, we don't want to sit at a light for 10 seconds longer. And they inserted in this plan all kinds of things, about, development and near the interchanges, but it was all geared at 53. 56 wasn't even a stepchild. It wasn't even considered. And I handed out all kinds of stuff to you guys. And I brought you copies today. They're in town hall, and it's all right there. All the visions that we had at 56, all the property owners that we're referring to, and you ignored them. You continually ignored them. You didn't even care. You didn't care one bit. And then, barely you get to 56 and, we'll support redevelopment in some areas, but we're going to leave it in IG2 zone. Every other interchange in town, 53, 54, 55, all got the hybrid possibility, but 56 stayed in the old, obsolete, 70-year-old IG2 zone that hasn't worked in 40 years. Now, why do you tell me that is? And even though it's vastly superior, for any type of development, 56 is, everything was shoved over to 53, to keep the east side of town stagnant and away from the Green Cult and their precious little village down in Stony Creek, even though, again, it's only 3 miles away. And you can see it in the town plan, all kinds of references to 53. 56 wasn't even mentioned. Hardly, I don't think it was mentioned at all. And it ignores all the benefits of the Gateway retail node. See the letter I wrote to you guys in the packet. You'd see the Gateway East plan. It's all there. You've had it for years and years and years, and you didn't care about it. Why didn't you care about it? Because you were told not to care about it by the selectmen. First DeRoss, and then later on, I imagine Cosgrove after Costco fell through. This is blatantly false information in the town plan, and it steers development. It's wrong, and it's illegal. And you use traffic data. I've got examples of that to make your case, and it's all dishonest. And they try to develop a situation where you actually took out all planned development districts. This was this Green Cult that we're talking about. Why? Because they didn't want the possibility of Costco ever coming back. So let's take out all the planned development districts, and we'll get rid of that possibility forever. Well, I prevailed on that one. You said, oh, no, we'll leave that one there and whatever. But, again, I'm going to read this whole thing, but it was just this massive campaign to just get what they wanted. And the whole commission, completely naive or worse, you went along with it. And in addition, quite frankly, all they want to do is talk about flawed concept of biotech and the industrial potential at 56 and elsewhere. Give me a break. Give me a break, people. If biotech was coming, it would have been here 20 years ago. It's totally wrong. They use it as a ploy. And when all else fails and they may not get what they want, you know what they do? And I tell you, I know exactly what they do because they did it both times, 2008 and 2018. They go behind closed doors and they say, I know, let's just fix this the last meeting and nobody's going to notice. And they put in their little changes that gives them their agenda. And here comes the town plan, and the public or Cook or nobody else can do anything about it. And I've seen it happen over and over again. And this just sabotages development and places the increased tax burden on the Brantford homeowners. Now, one reason, I'll finish with this part, one recent accomplishment of this biased and dishonest town plan was Superzone at exit 53, and that's what led us here. Everybody wanted Superzone in the Green Cult. Well, you guys accommodated them. You gave them a zone up there that can do anything. Big box, mom and pop, industrial, fulfillment center, anything. I called it super zone, and that's exactly what it is. And here it is. It's right across from Walmart, and it's a 35-acre piece, and our lawyer had a major problem with it legally. I had a major problem with it conceptually. I thought it was entirely unfair, but we put both things together. And you can see, and you had one commissioner, I forget the guy that's not here tonight. I was watching the meeting. He said, who cares, because one exit doesn't really affect another one. And I sat there, I said, man, are you kidding me? You think if you give one exit like 53 super zone to do whatever they want, and you give 56 nothing but an obsolete IG2, that doesn't put us behind the 8 ball forever? But that's how little some of you commissioners know. And I'm sorry, that's just the truth. I won't go over all these details, but they're there. And it's wrong. It's just entirely wrong. And then, the town planner says, well, the property owners came to me. They had this vision of 53, the Shapiro family, and they did this. Sorry, Harry, nonsense. That's not what happened. You went to them. It's clearly in tape. Chris Shapiro says it clear as day. We got the idea to do this whole application from Harry. That's what he said. It's right there. You want to go look at it yourself. Why? Because that was the agenda of town hall. And the new kid on the block, Harry Smith, just took it right to him and said, we got an idea here. We got a town plan that will accommodate it, and everybody's going to go away happy. So, we'll push this super zone through for you. And by the way, 56, go pound salt. And you know how important this was? How important this was if 53 got the super zone? You had Phil Carlone, who was the chairman of the Planning, Conservation, and Development Commission, and you had our first selectman show up at the meetings. Neither of those guys showed up at one Costco meeting, but they had to be there to make sure the super zone got through, that they wanted to show your commission, this is important to us. Well, what's that all about? So what's needed overall? I'll close with this part now. Well, you need independent oversight, because I don't trust this Planning and Zoning Commission farther than I can throw you. And forget about the Plan of Conservation and Development. That's just a joke. You got to have somebody oversee that's fair, and that will monitor and review and make it a fair process. Fairness and transparency, that's what you need. And you have to start with a well-balanced commission where someone like Bill Horn doesn't carry the day. I mean, that's the kiss of death right there in any plan. It's heading for nothing but green territory when he's on board. Involvement of the entire community. Study the plan yourself. I'll close with this. Study the plan yourself. You think I'm kidding? I'm not kidding about anything. I've lived this for 13 years. You go look at the plan. You tell me it's not exactly what I said it was, to give everything to everybody except Exit 56. Now, I'll conclude this as my first half. This is what I'm saying is what is not fair. This is what's not fair with the Planning and Zoning Commission, with the town plan, with town hall, with everything. And then my second part, which I like to deliver whenever it's convenient, but I would like to do it, it's going to be my vision that I've always had, along with other citizens, as how you can make it fair. And I think you could still do it, but you got to change your ways.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Cook. So I understand you want to let some other people speak before you get to the second part? Or do you want to continue with your second part? I
can go with the second part.
You want to? Okay. How long is it going to be? I'm just trying to.
Probably less than this one.
Okay, great. Why don't you go ahead?
All right, let's get it over with. Let me pull this one down. Hang on. Hang on a second. Okay. Are we up?
Yes.
All right. What we're proposing, what we've always proposed up there, even before Costco, is a Gateway East hybrid zone that's composed of roughly, unlike the application that's in front of you, it's composed not of 5 properties, but of 10 properties. It also involves the north side of the street because it just fits. It just works, and you'll see why as we go on. But it's roughly 75 acres of 10 properties. It's to give you an idea where it is. I don't know if I have a cursor or anything, but I think you can see 95 along just above the bottom. And You probably know where it is. I mean,
Mr. Cook, sorry to interrupt. You're not sharing your screen. You have the ability to, but we're not seeing anything on your computer screen. Just so you know.
I want you to see it, obviously. So how am I going to do this?
There should be a green share screen button on the bottom of the Zoom
Yeah, let me check it out.
Window.
Check that out.
That's working now, yes.
Okay, good. Thank you. This is, here's the Gateway East hybrid zone. And it works and it fits. And, you know, I think we're fortunate to have the opportunity to do something with it at this late in time, and basically the town's history, because we were one of the last surviving farms and, you know, other things. But that's basically where it is. Stop and Shop is, can you see my cursor? It's right down here. Can you see the cursor or no?
Yes.
That's Stop and Shop. Stop and Shop. This is the Weber piece, Weber Secondino. This is our piece where Costco was going, and this is the other side of the street where we live. That lends a lot. I mean, one thing I could say right off the bat to the chairman, I mean, I hear you say you don't want any residential up there, and I hear you as far as certain things. You don't want subdivisions. I mean, I don't think we do either. But back here, you know, where there's a slope down by the Branford River, is a really nice place that you could put, for example, certain number of units of over 55 that would dovetail real nicely into the YMCA, which is here, and you can do all kinds of nature stuff. So these are the kind of things you got to keep open. So as we continue, I think this is the last chance we have as a town to do something special. It's 10 properties, it's 75 acres, it's developable, it's not crazy. So what do you mean by special? Well, I think special would be a gateway. Now, this came from the 2008 Plan of Conservation Development. You can read it, but it says they've been identified as a key issue in Branford because these areas often understand the context in which they are located. Gateways help identify a sense of place and create a visual connection. Branford should work to establish gateways that are attractive and announce, specific areas where gateways should be enhanced, include the highways, interchanges, and routes in town center. Gateways are also help orient people to amenities. And gateways are a really good idea. They're a really good idea. I've heard this commission say it's a really good idea. I just think it's about time we started stop talking about making it a good idea and actually make it a good idea. What's the purpose of this hybrid zone? Well, I'm not going to read this because it's pretty standard. It's to make a gateway in which you have various mixed uses and restaurants and all kinds of nice things that people like, and some retail, but not crazy, and just a nice area where you go and you say, I'm proud of that area. It's not what Stony Creek throws out. Oh, they just want a bunch of strip malls. No, the last thing we want is strip malls. But I mean, you can read this later if you want, but I think that's a very important point to bring out. We wanted to do a really nice job. Interestingly, when you look at this, see this area in here? See all the green? That's the gateway area right there. Now you look all around it. What you see mostly, you don't see industry. You see goods and services that want to be there off of an interchange. Anything from, Stop and Shop to this truck stop to Rings End that I guess snuck in on some sort of an industrial use to the Chowder Pot. This is a goods and use area. And you want us to fill this center with what? Biotech? I mean, is that the plan? It makes no sense. What are the benefits? I'll go over them quickly. You got at least $2.5 million in tax revenue annually, hundreds of jobs. You got diverse and convenient shopping. We can go right down the line. It's an enormous list of benefits for the town. Vibrant cultural mode. You could have activities out there if you did it right. And it keeps going. You balance the traffic flow from one end of town to the other. You have a vast oversupply of IG2 land already, which we could start to eliminate. Some of it, we put the 75 acres to that. I mean, I put these in front of you years and years and years ago. And quite honestly, you didn't care. Yeah, I mean, if you cared, you didn't show it. But, they're all there. We could even have a Branford River nature preserve. You say, he's just throwing that in there to, make the green cult happy. Well, that's the last thing I want to do is make the green cult happy. But the point is there's at least 10 acres in this area that is wet enough where it's not going to be developed, and we can turn it into a really nice area for, the birds and the wildlife and whatever. So there's a lot. My point is there's a lot that can be done there, a lot. What are the other supporting factors for such a gateway? There's a lot of them. The fact that most of the industrial zone buildings now, a quarter of them, I think, are close to it, are vacant. That, it just pleases, here's an interesting fact. In 150 years, roughly 320 acres of Brantford's industrial land remains undeveloped. I mean, you think about that. And the point is, it indicates it's never going to get developed industrially, ever. I mean, we're going to go through another, 7 generations, and it's still not going to be developed. And no one ever thinks about that. Nobody wants to be an industrial zone anymore. And if you do, what do? You get the YMCA. Guess how much tax they pay the town? Nothing. How about the Army Reserve? Nothing. Is that what you want? Or do you want to do something good? I think we can do a lot of good things. And then here's the other interesting thing. And I think these are interesting points that just, if you go all the way from Key West to on Route 1, all the way to Maine on Route 1, you would be very hard pressed to find any length of road that is not commercially zoned, that has an industrial zone on Route 1. And you just look at the shoreline. Can you think of one place other than maybe the old Cheeseburrows farm in Clinton that is industrially zoned? No. The only one that's industrial zoned is Brantford. Why? Because the first selectman's grandfather at the time had a good idea. Let's make this the industrial section. But that was 70 years ago, and times have changed, and we've got to change with them. The state's invested $12 million at least in the roadway up here. You knew that when you saw the Costco application. The chairman himself recommended the changes that were made and how they accommodated. You didn't accommodate just a big box. Let's be real about this. You accommodated a regional shopping center. So obviously you knew that this area could hold a lot, and it still can. No question about it. It can also serve as a gateway for our neighbors, not just on 95, but, people come from Brantford and North Brantford, and they can come into our town through Route 1. It's a gateway on a number of different levels. And, and I won't get into the whole thing here, but you look at tourism. I mean, you could have put a beautiful tourism office out there that would accommodate the entire shoreline. Why? Because most tourists come from the metropolitan area and go east. They don't come from Boston. I mean, some do. So you join it and you put a beautiful thing in, you get a trolley down to the Thimbles, and, the possibilities. And this isn't pie in the sky. This is very doable if we put our mind to it. And to Commissioner Paluzzi's point, she's always talking about nodes. Well, good for her, because it said very clearly in the last plan of conservation and development that we should go after nodes, one of which, the last one you see, is north of exit 56, exactly where we're talking about. And you say, well, what's a node? Well, depends who you ask. But in my mind, it's just a place for connection. It's a place where it's a destination. It's where things happen. I want to note a few extra points, and then I'm almost done with this. These are just side notes. This gateway will promote access management, which is a keystone to all of your initiatives. It will develop, areas along Route 1, same thing. It will preserve natural resources and open space. And again, that's not lip service. It really will. Just when the Y went in, we preserved 15 acres of land because it was wet that will be there in perpetuity. Against the chairman's overarching statement that there should be no residential up there, I would reserve that some residential would work extremely well if it's, niche oriented, over 55, positioned rightly. You should know that we had to deal with Amazon to come. Now, this is very interesting. And they were all set to go. But they said recently, no, we're not coming. And you know why they won't come? You're going to be fascinated by this one. Most people will. Because there wasn't enough parking. because an Amazon fulfillment center of 150,000 square feet needs twice as much parking as Costco did. So either they worked a deal with Charlie Weber's land and did that, even though the topography is different, or they had to come across the street in ours and develop a safety concern. So they said, listen, good place, like to have been there, but we have too much parking for the space you have. I found that shocking, but it's nothing new. The other thing was, again, I talked about the regional center. And I want to say one more thing to the chairman. He said at the last meeting that, Costco was really controversial, really close. Not really. I mean, the truth of the matter is, I think most people in this town wanted Costco. And I think that a rough number, I would say clearly over 80%. I never ran into many that didn't. What I found particularly interesting was when you said that, well, and this commission voted 3-2. It was a close vote. But in one of the brightest spots that I've had in this whole Costco fiasco, I asked Chairman Chadwick once after one of these meetings, Joe, why did you vote against Costco? He goes, and this is to his credit, and I don't think I'm talking out of school. He said, I was misled. And if I had to do over again, I would have voted for Costco. So you can probably consider that vote 4-1. And John Lust, sorry, I go way back with John. He wasn't going to vote for Costco no matter what it was. I mean, his reasons for against Costco, I still can't figure out what he's saying. So let's be real about that. As far as the BCRD's gateway concept, I'll tell you a little thing about the BCRD and then I'll finish up. I know I'm going on. Kate Galambos, who I think is here tonight, big proponent of the BCRD. She said she couldn't get out. If Costco came, she couldn't get out of her driveway for 3 weeks. I mean, that's the type of, theatrics she was putting forth. Well, she came, and Perry Maresca remember this, and she had a big thing at the end of an Economic Development Committee meeting once. And she said, what we need at Exit 56? We need a gateway. That's a gateway area. And she got done with her thing. I said, Kate, what do you think people are going to get off 56, and consider it a gateway if there's just fields there, or if there's just brick, industrial buildings? A gateway has to have things. And she just sat there and looked at me like, I didn't think of that. And it shows to me the naivety of some of these people that they think they got all the ideas, but they don't. And the last thing I'm going to say about this issue, I grew up in Stony Creek. I went to Stony Creek School. I know probably all the old Creekers. I know about the new ones. I've never heard one objection out of them why they don't want development at 56 that made sense. I mean, Lauren Brown is here tonight. I love to hear what she has to say. Why doesn't she want, development at 56? What? Because Lauren's going to keep you 10 minutes at a stop. 10 seconds longer at a stoplight. You live 3 miles away from it. You couldn't live farther away from it if you were in the water. Because you basically are in the water down on Indian Point. Blind Point. But so, again, can we create something special? I'm going to close with this. Can we take those 75 acres and those 10 properties and put our heads together and create something special that is uniquely Brantford and will reflect New England in a way that we're proud of it? I always thought we could. I wasn't crazy about Costco. Town wanted it, fair price. Go ahead, knock yourself out. Amazon, I didn't want half of our property to become a parking lot. But can we do something special? I think we can. Brantford was an incredible place at one time. Still is, but, historic buildings. Why can't we bring that back? Why can't we bring some reflection of history back? Why can't we make it a place where people say, did you go to Brantford? That's a neat place out there. Or do you want them to go to Brantford and say, yeah, they got those storage buildings? Come on. So what's needed? And I appreciate your indulgence. What's needed is leadership and a fair process by town hall. We need to research and study other communities and what they're doing. Why reinvent the wheel? There's 50,000 communities in this country. I'm sure someone is doing something that we would say, boy, that would be pretty good. Where's our creativity and imagination? Does it always have to come down to just what anywhere else would do? And I'm going to say this, and I don't mean complete disrespect by this, but the Planning and Zoning Commission, with all honesty, you got to start planning. You do a fine job of zoning, but that's all you do. You don't plan. I don't remember the last time you planned anything. I mean, I've been waiting for a plan out of you guys up in just a broad vision of 56, and you just sit there and look at me like, well, that's not really our job. Well, then take the name planning off of your title because you don't plan. And then as you promised, when I last sat in front of you guys about, I can't remember how many years ago, but it was maybe 2. And I asked for flexibility. Did you promise it to everybody else? And Harry and others, oh, you'll get it with the PDD. No, he didn't. That's the last thing we got. We need flexibility, folks. We need a hybrid zone that has the same parts that you gave 53, not just to be competitive, but because it's best for the town. And I think that's a very important thing. And I want to say one more personal thing, and then I'm going to be quiet. And I appreciate extremely much your listening. I know I probably said things that didn't make you happy. I didn't mean to be insulting. But I want to say this, and I'm going to say it from my heart, okay? And I really mean this sincerely, and it's not to pull on the strings, but I mean it. I'm 66 years old. I've been doing this since I was 52. You all remember. I lost my wife, and I have cancer. Okay, that's life. I get that. You know, nobody gets a pass. All I'm asking is, can we try to work together to get this thing done in the best possible way for everybody so I don't have to, if God forbid, dump this onto my daughter? That's all I'm asking. And it's not a ploy. You know me too well. I don't make ploys. I think it's a fair request. Can we just put our heads together and get this area done right? And don't let the dog wag the tail from Stony Creek, because that dog, it doesn't hunt anymore. That dog should be done, unless they give you a good reason why. I appreciate enormously your patience. I'm sorry if I ruffled your sensibilities. I didn't mean to, but it's been a long journey, and it's gotten rougher lately. And again, I'm not backing down from this, but I would just ask, can we do something? And I mean, really do something to benefit the town. All we want is a fair price. Just give us a fair price. I don't need a yacht. I don't need an airplane. I don't need to go on vacation. Just give us a fair price and do what you want that's good for the town. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Mr. Cook. I think at this point, I've got 9:12. I'd like to take we've been starting since 7. I'd like to take a 8-minute break. So we'll reconvene at 9:20 and hear from more members of the public. So we'll take a recess until 9:20. So thank you, everyone.
He is ready to go.
Okay. Okay, I think we're going to start up again. And we'd like to hear more public comment. And I think the process is you raise your hand. I'm going to let Evan call on people, Evan. And I don't know if there's an order, a fair way to do this in terms of people.
Sure.
Recognize people.
Evan Brining, Assistant Town Planner. I know the person, Kate, was up first. Following that was Todd Petrowski. And then I see JC holding her hand up, so she'll be third. But anyone else, please indicate in the chat that you would like to participate or use the raise your hand function, and I'll try to go the best I can in order. So first up is Kate.
Hi, thank you. I have I will direct my comments to the commission, but first I need to make a statement. As a person whose photograph and name were included in Mr. Cook's first presentation, I have no choice but to publicly refute his claims. Mr. Cook's presentation is a collection of conspiracy theories and fabrications. For example, he just claimed that I told him that Costco would cause me to be unable to get out of my driveway. I live out of exit 54, so that is clearly a false statement that he has made here publicly. I am publicly rejecting his false claims about me, and I demand that he remove my name and photograph from his slides. Otherwise, I will consider his actions to be an attempt to bully and intimidate me and to defame my character. Now for my statements to the commission. I noticed that Mr. Cook and the letter that was read and Mr. Maresca used several adjectives, that 56 is a dying area, that it is stagnant, that it is obsolete. I would state it's quite obvious that if you drive up on Branford Hill, there are stagnant and obsolete areas up there. There's stagnation downtown. So it really has nothing to do with what type of zone it is. It's the business development or the economic development that's the problem. I find it rather sad that our Economic Development Commission does not seem to understand this. Economic development does not equal retail. There's plenty of opportunity for development up on Exit 56. It's just not retail. It's new age development, not 20th century development. So I encourage the commission to go forward with your plan to revert back to IG2 so that this town can move forward. Thank you.
Chuck Anderson, thank you. Kate, can you just state your full name for the record? I'm sorry, I didn't.
My name is Kate Lambos.
Great, thank you.
Yep.
Okay, Harry, you can. Who's next? Or Evan? I'm sorry.
Evan Browning is Assistant Town Planner. I think up next was Todd Petrowski. Todd?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Evan. Todd Petrowski speaking here. I would just like to publicly say I think Mr. Cook did a great presentation tonight, and I think he's 99.9% correct on what he's been saying. And if you really do look at the town structure, that 56 is a dying area, and there's no reason why it should be. You have more on and off ramps. You have Route 1 right there, and we're trying to pack businesses into Exit 53 area, which is I live in Indian Neck and I avoid the pretzel at all costs. 56 is wide open. And, he tried to do a good thing with Costco that the majority, if you were to take a vote, people wanted that. And it got shot down, however it got shot down. I'm not going to get into that. But I think you have plenty of property up there and easy access on and off. And there's something should be done. You guys should do something where businesses can thrive up there, because it's really, like I said, it's a dead area of town, especially after losing, Margaritas was there and Sukasa. And now, they're going to go for more housing, which is going to be at least where the old Margaritas was. And there should be stuff there for the citizens to use. You look at it from North Branford, you have Route 22 that comes right down to Bill Miller's. Guilford people could access it very easily via Route 1 or 95, and also Branford residents. And if you're allowing this to go on in other parts of town, you should definitely allow it to go on this part of town. And through you, Mr. Chairman, I don't know if this is even relevant, but if let's just say if Mr. Cook or the other people involved said, hey, we want to do residential development under an 830G law, what would that do for the town? Thank you.
Chuck Anderson, thank you, Mr. Petrowski. Evan, who's up?
Next up was J.C. Wyatt. J.C.?
Someone unmuted. There we go. I've never, ever shared my screen before. Is there somebody who could just show me what I need to do? If I hit
Harry Smith, Town Planner. If you're looking at the Zoom window down in the bottom in the middle, there should be several buttons. There's a green one that says Share Screen. We'll have to make you a co-host, which I'll do right now, so you can do that.
Okay.
And then
I could pull up like a JPEG drawing.
Whatever you have on your screen, it should basically show you. If you click Share Screen, you should get another window should come up. And then it should show you all the windows you have open, and you can click on the one you want to share.
Okay, so let me just open it real quick. Hold on. I see what you're doing. So now, how do I get back to us?
We can't see what would.
Okay,
Our screen is unchanged
I'm
yet.
coming.
Okay, now it's working.
We see something? Okay.
We do.
Okay. So, I've, for years and years, let's start again. I'm JC Wyatt. I live here in Brantford for 50 years. And I've always seen so many potential in many areas of the town of Brantford. And I'm just sharing right now a perspective of what can be done. But it's going to talk about, it's going to be a lot of money to get them to. But like Wayne and many of the co-owners up there, this potential area can be a total new look on how Brantford looks at building in this town. And it is true. This would be a new interchange here at 56. We can interchange the entire area, bring in corporate. If it actually wanted to be here, there's areas inside here which I could show you how we build the roads off here that actually interchange and make things correctly into a development. This would be a full walking residential and or however we want to make this down the road into a complete business district. Bringing into where he said, into Wayne's area. It's very important that we keep the quality, the history of who Brantford is, keeping the orchards, bringing in a winery, bringing in, if he said, like he said, every type of development that makes sense into these areas. Are all here in this drawing that I've done years ago that can be updated. My point of this here is this development that's completely grass and trees right now can be holding some of the biggest and best names of America and making sure that Brantford is a piece of that puzzle. As much as I said, this is the kind of a development that would make sense at 56. This is going to cost money. This isn't just, hey, what he wants, what I want, what you guys want. My point of this right here is that that's my drawing. This is what I think that could happen at 56. But it's also a point of where Brantford should see this. And I think bringing it back to where you guys are come up with a plan, or let the money, the developers, the owners, bring it to us and bring it to you is what I mean as the town elected commissions. And we're all going to nick and pick. I don't like that. I want that, or I would like that. And Wayne, I will say, if anything did happen, make sure you realize I'm going to come and help your daughter get something done for you up there. And I appreciate any of your time that you're doing here. I want to make sure you realize this area is part of who he is. This is where his farms can be part of this development. Like you said, right now, the biggest thing is wineries, bringing in developments that make sense and keeps the preservation of his areas, but makes it part of a gateway destination, which I'm showing you right here, and bring in things that we've never seen before to fill in that space correctly for our future. And that's my comment on tonight's meeting.
Okay.
But now we close out.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Wyatt.
You're welcome.
You should be able to end the screen share, I think.
So do I like hit my X on my screen? Oh, here it is. Stop share. Got it.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
See, I learned something tonight, guys. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mrs. Wyatt. Evan Browning, Assistant Town Plan. Oh, go ahead.
I'll take questions too on any of that if we need to, but unfortunately, I'm just putting out my 2 cents on how I hope we can look at this property and put the right mixed use development that should go back to future in that area, not just industrial.
Thank you, Ms. Wyatt.
Thank you.
Next up was Miss Diane Whitney.
I'm an attorney I'm Diane Whitney, an attorney with Coleman & Conley, and I represent Charlie Weber and Al Secondino, who own the property at 569 East Main Street.
Diane, we can hardly hear you.
Oh dear, is that better?
Yeah, you may just speak a little louder and get a little closer. I think you'll be.
I'm trying to do that. Thank you.
Oh, much better.
Much better.
Okay. I hope that you have a letter from me about what you're considering tonight. So I just want to say very quickly, my clients who own the property that is part of the property in question are very much in favor of what you're doing. It may be just a first step And we agree with the changes to the zone that Attorney Mangione mentioned in his letter. But at least tonight's would be a first step to getting this property back to some usable condition, and we're very much in favor of it. Thank you.
Chuck Andrews here. Thank you, Attorney Whitney. Evan, who's next?
Evan Briding, Assistant Town Planner. Up next was Mr. Nichols.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, just a couple things I want to add. I live off exit 53, and I'm just wondering, traffic-wise, there is no on or off ramps, and it's only two lanes wide over there. So basically, you have to go all the way to 54 to get back on the highway. To get off the highway, you can get off 53. So we have that one issue off 53. On top of that, there's no fire department fighting to get to a call off of 56. 53 is a different story. Safety is a huge concern. We've already, at this point, added the Aldis. Now, anyone that drives through that part of town on a holiday weekend knows it's nothing but gridlock. What would the response times be? We already had a tragedy, which could have been a huge potential, tragedy 2 days ago. If that happened on Branford Hill and you put a super zone over there, 56 is where it belongs. You have 3 on ramps, 2 off ramps. I just don't understand it. And to the lady Kate, I'm wondering what the new age development is that she was speaking of. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Nichols. I think up next we have Ray Ingram, right?
Thank you. Ray Ingraham, 34 Indian Neck Avenue, member of the RTM. I'm really happy to hear that the Planning and Zoning took up the initiative to move this item along. I agree with getting the PDD off and getting the land marked in a zone that you can start the process of deciding what it actually should be in the end. So thank you.
Thank you, Ray.
Thank you, Mr. Ingraham. Yeah, go ahead, Evan.
I'd like to one more time ask if anybody would like to participate. Please use the raise your hand function or indicate in the chat. I see Perry Moresco would like to make one more comment.
Perry, you're muted.
Okay, thank you very much. So again, I am requesting on behalf of the EDC that we revise the stagnant IG2 zone to be more flexible, more lucrative, more attractive, a more beneficial zone status. We talk about in 2015 in the zoning, however, all the other exits were converted to hybrid zones. When I spoke at the POCD planning meetings, I requested as EDC chair that all of the exits be updated as hybrid zones. For reasons unknown, 53, 54, 55 became hybrid. 56, even though it had access points, was omitted. I wish I had taken photos and sent them up to and set them up to share on my screen with everyone in attendance tonight. Instead, I ask every one of you to use your mind's eye. I have to believe you all know the area we're discussing. What are we trying to save here? Just about every square acre of these parcels are empty, abandoned looking properties from the street view. Areas that we're talking about, East Industrial Road, 16, 20, and 26. We have the Hal Brown Company building. Next to that is a vacant lot. And then 26 is a home of Connecticut Shellfish. East Main Street and Route 1. It's 569 is a vacant property that once farmed raspberries at the corner of Leeds Island Road, East Main Street across from the Chowder Pot. and extends back to and around Stop and Shop to East Industrial Road. Look at that corner. How attractive is that to you right now? 573 is a vacant property which once produced apples, peaches, and corn over decades of farming. What's there now? 596 and 612 have existing homes, both owned by 616 property owner. 616 East Main Street stretches from Route 1, which once was home for Strawberries and the old Hilltop Orchards building on the way down, to the upper stretch of the Branford River overlooking Van Wilton's Garden Center. Again, from the road at Route 1, how much of that is attractive to people coming into Branford? 618 and 620 are basically vacant properties abutting the Shoreline Y facility. Also in the mix of this area, we have the old Bittersweet Farm property. Once hoped to be the headquarters of biotech company Curigen. It's being remarketed now for use as a warehouse or distribution facility, industrial manufacturing, biotech, pharma lab, something of that sort. As attractive as the Army base is, we receive no tax revenue, and those at the facility do not leave the building, as it is self-sufficient for those within the building. Last year, at an Economic Development Commission meeting, Kate Columbus made a compelling presentation to the EDC, requesting that we address the entrances into town, such as I-95 exits and the east and west ends of town at Route 1, as gateways into town. We most emphatically agree. In fact, there are plans in the near future of obtaining wayfinding signs in certain parts of town. As part of that exercise, we should encourage Exit 56 to have open arms welcome into Branford and not look like an abandoned vacant area. This is a portion of a letter that I wrote to a prominent government official on behalf of the EDC and the town of Branford. East Industrial Road has become a major access road to this area that has seen incredible, responsible growth over the years. When I-95 first cut its way through the apple orchards of yore in the 50s, Exit 56 was seen almost as just another way of getting on or off the highway from Route 1. Today, however, it is forever bustling with vehicles transporting people from the region to and from work, to a local destination point such as the Thimble Islands, the local winery, or one of the craft breweries. With the truck stop located at the base of the exit, the intersections are teeming with semis getting off the highway for safety rests and checks, as well as deliver their freight and wares to the greater New Haven area. East Industrial Road, Route 1, Leeds Island Road, and School Ground Road are all traveled as access points for anyone getting off Exit 56 to head to North Branford and Northford, as well as the western side of Guilford. Likewise, those roads are used for travelers from these areas to get back onto I-95. These same streets and intersections abut manufacturers and research companies focused on the biotech, life science, and other medical-driven fields. This area has become a hub for this technology that services the state, the country, and much of the world. Companies such as Semaphore, Freethink Technologies, all call this area Branford home. All are growing and expanding their facilities. Just yesterday, a groundbreaking ceremony was held for Bausch & Strobel's new facility off Route 139. With over 200 acres of undeveloped land now being marketed and targeted for similar use now in the market, East Industrial Road, as it is now, cannot support this volume without much needed upgrades and improvements. And having said that, part of the overall plan for this area should be an overall plan of something similar that was just presented with roads and connections and making sense in the area. We cannot wait for, hopefully, a Curigen to come and build their headquarters. We've been waiting since that property was abandoned for years. So again, I ask, on behalf of the EDC, on behalf of the town of Branford and its citizens, that you look at other ways other than just strictly an IG2 zone. I was misquoted in the minutes at the previous March meeting when I said my letter. We are not looking for retail as far as EDC is concerned. While a bank, a restaurant, or specialty store may come up in part of the mix, and that's what I said, the days of retail as we know it are gone. As I expressed this to our town planner in the minutes, gave the impression that I and or the EDC were requesting retail. That is not the case. We are strictly wanting more options than just IG2. We are simply looking for this area to be considered as the other 3 exits in town were considered. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Maresca. Are there any, Evan, or others? I see Mr. Cook's raising his hand again, but are there others who haven't spoken who wish to speak?
I do not see anyone else, and I don't see anyone else in the chat either. I think it's just Mr. Cook.
Okay, Wayne, please make it short and but go ahead. You let him speak.
You didn't think my last one was short? All I wanted to say is this, that if you start off by removing the PDD and getting it to IG2 with, as Ms. Maresca just said, with the intent of examining it closely, I think that's a good start. But I think it's also important that we all keep in mind that, you know, we got one shot at this. I mean, we really do. I mean, if not, we're all going to start. I mean, Charlie's 78 years old. I already told you, you know, I'm 66. I mean, you know, we're not spring chickens anymore. And we want to, you know, get rid of the assets that we thought we already did. But if you help us do it right, we'll do the best we can to do it right. And I think the town has got to make up its mind from the selectman's office on down. How special do you want this to be? It's that simple. I mean, I'm not saying create Sturbridge or Mystic Village, but I think we could do some nice things. I think I've seen JC's work. She does beautiful work. And she has tremendous imagination. I'm not saying that it would all apply, but I think it's time right now, and I'll close on this. You know, on this issue at least, I think we should stop, you know, sniping at each other and just try to bring some ideas to the table that work. All right, I'll snipe at other people, but I don't have to snipe at you because, you know, I kind of need you going forward. But, you know, the reality is I think we can do some really, really good things. And I'm going to be on the lookout for what other communities do because I know they do nice things. And I don't see why we can't either. And I'm going to talk to my friend JC, and she's going to tell me, you know, Wayne, here's what I think we should do.
Thank you, Mr. Cook. I'm old enough to remember the days of the Pirate Museum, speaking of different things to do. So,
you know, I'm going to tell you something. I'm going to tell you about that Pirate Museum.
I didn't mean to open that up.
No, I just want to tell you something. That was one of my better ideas. No, hang on a second. Except that at some point I realized I wasn't Walt Disney.
Right.
And it was going to cost a whole lot more.
You tried, you know, you tried something new. We can't put no one can be pulled for that. So great. We appreciate it. So, Evan, is there anyone else out there to speak?
Evan Browning, Assistant Town Planner. No, I don't see anybody.
Okay. Any other comments from commission members of the public or commission members or staff? Then we can close this matter as a public hearing then. And we will do that. Thank you, everyone. We appreciate all your comments. So, then that brings us then. We have another public hearing here. We do item number 6 on our agenda. This is Connor Daly, 548, 552 Leeds Island Road, special exception accessory apartment. Is the applicant ready for that one?
Yes.
Okay. You can proceed.
Okay. Connor Daly, owner, 548, 552 Leeds Island. I'm proposing to not change the zoning, still remain a single family dwelling, but add the accessory apartment. Truthfully, for the reasons, my parents are getting older, can't really afford to live in Brantford now with the way the market is trending, and ultimately would like to have a place for them to potentially come and live with me. I still plan to build the home in architectural context with its surrounding properties. And ultimately, this would just benefit me, my family, and I think is not far off from the other multiple 2-family dwellings and 3-family dwellings that are about, walking distance up the street from me here on Leeds Island Road.
Thank you. Evan, did you prepare the staff report on this one?
Evan Brining, Assistant Town Planner. I did. Like Mr. Daly just stated, this proposal consists of a new accessory apartment to be added to an existing single family, to be within the existing single family home. He also proposes construction of a mudroom in the rear of the house and an enclosed patio in the front of it, the latter of which requires a variance from the Zoning Board of Appeals. This application requires special exception approval per section 3.3B41. The applicant meets the bulk requirements of the R3 district with the exception of the front setback. The applicant has not provided a landscaping plan. The applicant meets the parking requirements but intends to put the 2 spaces on a piece of land he is in the process of purchasing. You can see in front of you where I'm hovering over, that's the piece he's in the process of acquiring. He intends to merge the lot. He intends to merge that piece of property with the lot he currently owns. This application satisfies the general requirements of section 7.4 as well as section 9.8F, special exception criteria. The applicant was issued a positive recommendation from the Stony Creek Architectural Review Board last night, April 14th. We did post and submit our staff report, or my staff report, to the commission earlier this week. However, we did add some conditions today. I will start by reading off our findings. Finding number 1, subject to compliance with the conditions listed below, the commission finds, based on the testimony and application materials presented, that the proposed use of the property is consistent with the special exception criteria of section 9.8. The commission finding number 2, the commission finds per section 6.3L that additional plantings beyond those currently on the property are not necessary. We have 3 conditions. Number 1, prior to the issuance of a zoning permit or the zoning authorization for the issuance of a building permit, the following shall be addressed to the satisfaction of the zoning enforcement officer. Item A, the owner of the accessory apartment property must file a deed restriction on the land records requiring that the unit, if rented, be rented at or below prices that would qualify the apartment as affordable housing as defined in CGS section 830G. The deed restriction is to be reviewed by the town council with evidence that the recording of the executed deed is the deed restriction version approved by the town council. Item B, documentation of the purchase of the portion of land upon which the parking spaces are proposed and its legal merger with the property the applicant currently owns at 548 Leeds Island Road shall be shown on the site plan. And item C, submittal of the revised plan showing the removal of any building addition not meeting the zoning regulation setback requirements. The building plans may further be modified via a minor special exception modification by town planner should the applicant obtain a variance to allow the building addition in the front setback. Condition number 2, prior to the start of construction, a soil and erosion sediment control plan shall be submitted to and installed to the satisfaction of the zoning enforcement officer and maintained throughout the project. And then finally, all proposed lighting shall comply with the requirements of section 6.7 and its associated appendix of the zoning regulations.
Great. Thank you, Evan. Are there questions from commission members or staff before we open up to the public? With that, then, let's open up to the public. Any member of the public wish to comment on this item?
Anyone that would like to participate, please use the raise your hand function on the participant list next to your name or indicate in the chat, please. I do not see anyone at this time.
Okay, great. Mr. Daly, any further comments? You're okay with our conditions, proposed conditions?
I am.
Okay. Any other thoughts or comments from Mr. Daly or from commission members or staff? Not, then we'll close this matter as public hearing. This is something I think we can take up in a little bit. So thank you, Mr. Daly.
Thank you.
Thank you. So that brings us then to our minutes of April 1. I think they were sent out, but Harry, are they not ready to go yet? Is that correct?
Harry Smith, Town Planner, yes. So we'd like to propose some revisions. So we're working on that in-house here.
Okay, so we'll table the minutes. Any correspondence?
There is no correspondence this week for this meeting.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, then let's go back on the public hearings that we can address. The first one is the 8 Sawmill Road, the special exception for grading. And Harry, I understand you have a staff report on that. My understanding on that, again, is that they did the issue in that one was any drainage caused by the project that would exacerbate drainage on the neighboring property. They did, to their credit, went out and did all the surveys, made the measurements, and ended up increasing the on-site galleries to ensure, I think, probably less than the existing than what it is now. So, and I think that that's good. So, in any event, you want to bring up the resolution?
Sure, Harry Smith, Town Planner. Let me just share my screen here and. So you should be able to see a memorandum from myself to the commission dated March 30th. They're opposing 3 findings here. One is a finding based on the drainage report, and probably should edit this to remove, let's say, but not limited to the revised updated drainage report, I believe it's entitled, remove submitted by the applicant on 3/30/21, and comments regarding that report submitted by the town engineer, and remove on 3/30/21, because both those things have been superseded by the additional work you just referred to and the additional comments from the town engineer. So I think that would take care of that finding. Again, we're proposing waiver of the landscaping section since this is going to be a single family house, which is not really appropriate, and the requirement that the landscaping plan be prepared by a licensed landscape architect. You'd be waiving that as well. And then typical erosion control condition, and then a standard condition about landscaping being an ongoing requirement of the approval, whatever's shown on the plan, and then dust control conditions, again, pretty typical. And number 4, requiring an as-built survey to document compliance with the final site grading and installed stormwater drainage measures prior to issuance of a CO. And that is it.
Great. Thanks, Harry. Questions, comments from anyone? Any of the commission members? If not, then does someone want to make a motion to approve this application with the findings and conditions set forth in Harry's March 30th, 2021 report? And who's voting? I think it's the regular, I think it's all of us. Right?
I think
who missed?
Mr. Lust is recusing himself, is that?
That's correct.
Okay, John's recused.
And I missed a meeting, which I haven't been given the tape for, so I can't.
Apologize for that. So I think we're down to possibly 4 voting members.
Okay. So I think it's Joe Chadwick, Fred, Joe Vayuso, and myself.
Yes.
Okay.
And I'm assuming you, when you're referring to the staff member, referring to it as revised?
Yes.
Verbally? Okay, thank you.
As verbally revised, correct. Someone want to make that motion of approval?
Joe Vayuso makes that approval.
So motion made to approve by Joe. Is there a second?
Chadwick seconds.
Second by Joe Chadwick. Further discussion? All in favor? Joe Chadwick, are you in favor?
Chadwick in favor.
Fred Russo?
I'm
Where's Fred?
I'm going to stop.
I'm sorry. I was off. I was on mute. Fred Russo in favor.
Thank you, Fred. Joe Vayuzo?
Joe Vayuzo in favor.
And Chair's also in favor. So that application's approved. So the next ones, I think we've continued. The next one we have is the Planning and Zoning Commission zoning map amendment. So we had an interesting public hearing. I think the good news is that I didn't hear anyone against anyone in favor of keeping the relic PDD up there. So I think that is that seemed to be unanimous, and I think that frankly, so there were some decent points made. I wish Wayne could avoid the ad hominems. I just wish he could avoid the conspiracy theories, because Wayne, I like his idea of looking at other places and see what they're doing. I think it's a great idea. But it just kind of invites irritation. So, but our job is to put all that aside, because I think he did provide a lot of materials for us, and I thought he had some good ideas, and I'm going to look through them on next stuff. But I mean, for this stuff, I think it's a layup. I think that we should at least get this going, get it back, and then continue further. So anyway, that's my initial thoughts. Let's let others. What does everyone else think?
I have one question, Chuck.
Sure.
So I heard very loudly and clearly, in support of nodes, which I've always, promoted. And I also heard, this interest in the hybrid zone. What I don't understand is who's responsible. Is that something that should be initiated by the planning and zoning, or is that something that comes from a developer proposing, which comes first, the chicken or the egg?
In other words, for the zoning text and amendment change, who should do it?
Not for this vote, but for what they would like to see in the future.
Yeah, no, it can be either. I mean, we've seen examples of both. For Exit 53, a developer came in and proposed a zone, we approved it. For this one, we're proposing this one, which it's a simple one. It's a map change, but it's the same legislative process. So I mean, that's a good question, Marcy. Do we want to have like a committee or something to start something like that to look further, to look and see what other, get someone from economic development, the property owners, come up with something and make a proposal, present it to us, and then we can do it. Or, the developer could do it too, and it's a consultation. But good questions. I it's certainly worth looking at. I have some thoughts and background. I've said them before that, I still think of this area as primarily economic development, which means non-residential. But that said, even residential, my main concern about residential is that once you allow residential, it opens up to an 830G. And I have a concern about an 830, have the exposure, because I still think that's a target. And I like the insulation of the industrial use exemption. But, so maybe even residential as part of a PDD, I could see, but as part of a mixed use, not all residential. But mainly not residential, because my still main preference is that it be for economic development purposes. What that is and how it is, I don't know. But in other ways of doing it. So anyway, that's your question. How do we do it? Maybe who does it? It could be either. I mean, we got something that I think that Attorney Mingione kind of threw together. But I think, frankly, I don't think there was a lot of thought in it. Basically, it said, go through the list and said, you can do everything. That's basically what I saw it as. I think it would take a little more thought in that. And because I wasn't, if it's on the list, yes, we can do it. So, I mean, that seemed to be the J methodology I saw in that. But I'd like a little more study on that.
I guess my concern is, is it appropriate to differentiate this IG2 zone separate from the other three exits? Like that's the history and understanding that, I'd like to why do we continue that,
Sure. No, that's, you know what? That is the worst argument, I thought, for rezoning, that we do it in others, because Exit 56 is different, guys. it's different for access. It doesn't have the one access. It's different from the surrounding zoning. It's the other stuff is zoned for as retail, or it's mainly BL for the other ones, and this isn't. And maybe it should be. I mean, but whatever. I don't think you do this by saying we do it for others, because I think they're distinct. I think the access is all distinct, and the development, the surrounding areas is it's a different part of town. I think we look at this as exit 56, and what's the best for that? I mean that just is not a persuasive argument for me that we do it for others. I mean, I guess there's some common stuff. I agree. Yeah, any interchange is going to have a common. I get that, but these are very different. I think this is distinctive from any of the other ones. And so,
yeah, I guess for me, with 5 exits, on and on, it seems like the zoning is more restricted for uses rather than less restrictive than the others. And maybe that's just the way the development has happened as far as industry and, but I mean, I'm just trying to understand it and, understand the ramifications. I mean, I think Wayne's vision to do something that's very, gateway and high end and, I don't know that there's a demand for that. I mean, I think there needs to be a lot of study as to, what are the businesses that really are expanding and are appropriate for 5-lane interchange exits. And even within that, how do you make it special and identifiable to Brantford and not what was traditionally done in towns where, you had one type of development in the centers and then you pushed everything to the periphery, and we've got sort of 2 extremes of what's happening on our periphery. And, I mean, I don't want to see one continuous Route 1 development by any means. And so, that's my reason for not wanting to see more a nodal approach and cross circulation. And I think there's a lot of those opportunities at 56, and yet it seems to be stymied from doing things because of the zone it's in. So I don't know how to rectify it, but that's just sort of what I've come to understand.
No, and one thing I hear you saying is, study it and whatever. And I agree with that. And I think, actually, I think Wayne's saying it too. Look at other, so good point. I think part of what my expectation is that industrial zoned or office zoned land is slower to develop than other types. It just is. I think you see that everywhere. So, and landowners probably don't like that, but that I think that it takes longer time to develop. But a lot of times when it does develop, it is the type of use that towns love. I mean, in terms of generating taxes, jobs, and not a whole lot of traffic. Those are the benefits, without the cost of public services, but yet you get a lot of, taxes and whatever. So we get our mill rate down and that's the hope, but I think that's just slower to do it. But I mean, even there are some advantages now that there are spots available. There aren't a whole lot out there. So, but you're right. You're saying it's been vacant and whatever, and maybe there's some dying stuff, and maybe we can spruce it up, and maybe it's whatever. So I'm not averse to any of that. But that's sort of just my general mindset. That it is. If we want development, then allow residential. Then you get multifamily all up and down. That's my sense. Just because I think that's particularly now that's what's going. And but maybe I'm wrong. But I don't know. We that's what I see happening. But who knows? Anyway, what do other people think?
I worry about the sort of hyperbole that we're having with a lot of the expression for this area. It was originally industrial because in traditional zoning, it had a lot of highway access. Since we don't have railroads anymore, that's how you get trucks in and out without going through the center of town. Made a lot of sense then. Maybe it doesn't make so much sense now. What we're looking for at this point is just back off the PDD, put it back to its original zoning, and let the market take over. Trying to come up with a Swiss Army knife zone isn't going to help anything until we have a better sense of what the entire market direction is. We can take a bucket full of Disneyland paint and paint the map up, make this thing like you can do anything you want there. But if they don't have a marketable plan for the land, anything we do in terms of zoning is not going to make them come. The fact that the land exists in the proportion, in the dimension with the access will invite people in to make proposals. And we should probably back off to that point.
Thanks, Joe. I mean, there's some validity. I agree there's some validity to that. The example I give is Stony Creek Brewery, which is, probably the biggest tourist attraction in town. How did we zone that property? We had that was in the 2008 Plan of Conservation Development. I dare you to find the word brewery used in the 2008 POCD. I mean, the reality is that had nothing to do with good planning on behalf of Planning and Zoning Commission. It was the market that just, that someone looking for something wanted to do, and that drove it. Who cared what they made the underlying zoning work after they had use, and I think frankly that drives a lot of development. We kind of follow we're not the leader, we're the follower. I think that's probably the reality in most. I mean, I think there's some benefit to, loosening the entry barriers in some way, but in a lot of ways, if people want it and it looks good, it's easy to sell. You just do a zone change, even if it's not allowed there now. I mean, that's the argument, rezone it. And so say something comes in, say it was a fulfillment center, which I don't know would be allowed now. That's an easy thing. You just check the box as part of your special permit application. You do a zone change and whatever. So yeah, there is I get that, and I think that's probably more approximate to reality in some ways. That said, it doesn't. I think it's good to do planning. I don't want to totally discount what we do, but I don't see that as a panacea. We could be the greatest planners and have the best zone, or we could throw out all zoning and whatever, and it still might not sell. Because it's market prices. They want too much for the land or whatever. Who knows? I agree that the driving factor is a lot of these things, and we don't pat ourselves on the shoulders and pretend that we're doing this. It's really the market. Anyway, so who else?
Fred Russo, I'd like to say something.
Fred, I see your forehead. Put the camera down so I can see your face.
Okay, I feel like Wilson on the
I know
home improvement there. A couple of things. One is I agree with Jerry Maresca. I thought he brought some good points about why a hybrid zone would be appropriate. I think I know we've had this conversation, Chuck. I take to heart what you say. I honestly do. And I thought about it, and I said to myself, exit 53 would have been a much more appropriate. Your concern is if you put it to anything other than what it is now, it opens it up for an 830G possible application. But exit 53, there's a place where it was more appropriate to do something like that, and it never happened there. And again, I agree with Joe, who's saying let the market find its place. And I also think about with COVID, I think it's really changed the way people come in and develop today. I don't know if office buildings, lots of people who worked in offices, even at Yale, they don't work there. They work there. They work from home. And I think that's going to become more of a common thing for people who do work in these kinds of offices. So, expecting some kind of a business that is going to house a lot of people, I don't think we're going to be seeing that anytime in the near future. I don't think anybody expected COVID to bring that about, but I think that's a reality today about, a building owner looking at something and saying, hey, we don't really need to do this anymore. We don't need a brick and mortar structure to house people. They can do it at home. So I think that, the choices that become available for whatever the exit is become less and less. Your concern, and again, I take it to heart, is about 830G. I agree with you. But we also know that at some point in time, 830G is going to bite us in the rear end because we have to play a catch-up game with it as well. So I'm not suggesting that we do promote 56 for affordable housing, but we also have no control of a developer coming up to those property owners and saying, that's what we want to put in there. We're going to give you more money than you can imagine. So in some regard, we don't even have that control over it because they'll come before us anyway. So my thought still is make it as attractive as possible to a potential user of that property or buyer of the property. It might be a land lease or something, but to make it as attractive as possible. And so I don't disagree with what you're saying. I understand your logic with it, but it doesn't, following that logic, there's no safeguards. Because if Beacon wanted to come in and develop Exit 56 and spoke to the property owners up there, they may just concede and say, yeah, fine, and then we have no control over it anyway. So I'm just thinking that an exit that would have been more appropriate, like 53, main road, food stores, everything is there, and it didn't go there. And we're worrying about it going on 56. I almost say it's almost more unlikely that that's going to happen. And that if we consider the hybrid zone, it tells people outside the town who want to come into the town, want to develop something there, whether it's one person or 5 people, that we're pretty open for that kind of a suggestion. And is there always a possibility for an 830G to come? Yes, absolutely. But even with that, it doesn't become our final decision. If those property owners decide that's what we want to put here, it didn't make any difference what we did with this kind of a zone. I'm thinking forward, saying, let's put it out there so that a potential buyer or developer comes in and says, hey, this is a great place to put a business because of the way the configuration of the highway is. And so I like I said, took to heart what you said. I think about Exit 53. It should have happened there if there was going to be affordable housing. That would be an ideal place for it. And it didn't. And I don't see why it would happen at 56 either, for that matter. We may be protecting something one way and hurting the value of the property in another way. So I still feel the same way. And I think we like Perry Maresca said, I think we should consider that making it a hybrid zone.
Sure. Yeah. And Fred, my immediate reaction is, that I think that's a fair point. Chuck, you're overstating it. Hasn't happened anywhere else. What makes you think it's going to happen here? Fair point. And maybe there's other ways to mitigate it. One way would mitigate it would be to limit the area. In other words, don't rezone the entire IG2 as it, but just the 9 parcels or whatever. So even if the worst happens, it's limited to that area or something like that. So I don't. Those are fair comments. And I mean, part of me, I just don't want residential there anyway, even if it's affordable or not affordable. I would prefer economic development uses. I think that's the great thing. And I think that's what the Economic Development Commission does too. And even, I don't even think they were saying, maybe on a slope or something, you can't put it's not flat enough for real, whatever. Maybe you could put some elderly there. I understood what he was saying here. I heard it. So anyway, that's, I hear that and it's fair. So, that's part of, throw that in the package too. So.
Not a problem.
Right. So, Joe Vayuzo, what do you think?
Well, I agree a lot about what Fred was saying about, creating some kind of a hybrid zone there or mixed use or some way expanding the flexibility in that zone. Or if we have to zone it somewhere where it's a little more flexible until somebody does come up with a proposal. But the hybrid zone for that area should be extended there as well, like we did with 53, because they came up with a good proposal in 53, and hopefully they come up with a good proposal in 56. Like I said, there's more than one property there, and see what it may not come all at once. It might be a section here, a section there, but mixed use, and like you just said, possibly some elderly housing, possibly in the right location where Wayne was talking about. I like to see some flexibility there, and not just strictly an IG2 zone. like it's going to go like it was years ago. You know, so I'd like to have it in some way that it's flexible for development to come in and hear what they got to say, and then we'll go from there.
Okay, great. Thanks, Joe. And by the way, the PDD is, anyway, that's always out there. We approve one up there. So,
right.
John, what do you think?
I think what Joe Chadwick said has a lot of merit. I think ultimately, no matter what we do, the market's going to drive what happens here. And the market drives what we've typically seen, which are proposals. I think for tonight, we've got to get it back to IG2. And then I think Wayne is right. We have a chance to look at this, and we should look at this. We've got 5 owners, 70 acres, in a very special area. I think we have to look at it. And I think some way we do have to make it clear that we're flexible on this property as far as zoning. And I think our performance has shown that on, like at exit 53 and like that. And, if we can I don't know how you design a hybrid zone. I mean, you can call it a hybrid zone, but I don't know how you design it to make it attractive. That's one thing that's bothering me now. But I believe that what Joe Vayusa was saying is that we have to, I guess, make it clear some way that we're looking at this as a special property and we're paying close attention to it, and we're willing to talk.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. What time is it? So I don't want to drop the ball. We're going to vote on this, and the fear is then we don't talk about it again. We don't do anything further. So, but I do want to, whatever it is, getting your 10:30 and we're going on. So maybe we can talk about it. I mean, the problem is all our meetings are so long. I mean, it is just.
I know.
It's I don't want to drop this, but I do want to keep the discussion, whether it's you hate doing it, but maybe it is a committee or maybe something else, or a subgroup or something that can review this. So anyway, maybe we can just talk about this. I'd like to get the vote tonight, but then we can keep it as an agenda item and then figure out how, what we address. And, part of the address is, we could say we want the, property owners more. That's an option, although I think we can look at it, or maybe we do it together. So does that sound good? So we can.
Fred Russo, is it possible then tonight to vote to remove the PDD, and which would at least in some quasi way leave it as the original zone, and then have a group committee form and have that discussion? So
yeah. I think that I think we're just going to vote on the application to approve it.
Right.
Then I think at our next meeting, then we could think. It's stuff to think about. My thought was just let's put it as an agenda item, and then maybe the next meeting we do it. Who's on the committee, whatever. Maybe people could make input to Harry in the meantime, and we talk about it further. So that was kind of my thought.
Can I just say one more thing?
Sure.
Marcy Paluzzi here. I think because of its past in particular, and I do a lot of development, and I hear a lot of hearsay, and this maybe isn't the most pleasant thing to hear, but I hear a lot of complaints about how difficult applications are to get through town, and whether it's because of, which I think is good, an environmental sensitivity to projects, but I think there's also a litigation that goes through. And, this area in particular has a bad track record. So I think it's really important, like John said, to get a message to developers that we want creative ideas and combined plans that does more than what, and whether that's, driven through the Economic Development Committee or, there's something drafted in, a special criteria. I mean, I think, Wayne has always had really creative, good intentions to make it, something that's more than industrial or higher end or really beautiful, and whatever that is and whatever the market allows for that, I just think it's important for us to send a clear message to the community that we're open to that. So
sure. Okay, no, good point. So anyway, we'll bring this, we'll keep it as an agenda item, next steps, whatever that means, if we can, and talk about it again in our next meeting, just so, again, the fears that it goes down. Harry, is there anything else? Yeah.
No, I can put the suggested motion up if that's helpful.
Okay.
And hopefully you can see the staff recommendation at the bottom and just a standard motion to adopt it. And could suggest May 1st as the effective date.
Okay. Does someone want to make a motion? Well, you can read the staff thing, whoever makes a motion, and put in the May 1st effective date.
Chadwick will make that motion based on the staff recommendation.
Okay, so Joe's making the motion that the map amendment be approved with the finding that the proposed zoning map amendment is in accordance with the comprehensive plan and is consistent with the plan of conservation and development with an effective date of May 1st, 2021. That's Joe's motion. Is there a second?
John Lust with a second.
Seconded by John. Any further discussion? All in favor? I think we're the 5 regulars now. Is that right? John, are you in favor?
John Lust in favor.
Joe Chadwick.
Chadwick in the affirmative.
Joe Vayuso.
Vayuso in favor.
Marcy.
Marcy's in favor.
And Chair is also in favor. Okay, so then we have the special exception for the accessory apartment. That's Mr. Daly. Maybe we can bring that one up. Evan? Evan, I know you went through that. There was an added condition, was that right?
Yeah, there was an added condition of added finding 2, an added condition 1C, and another condition 3, I believe, which he read out loud. And we do have those typed out, but we did not have it available 24 hours ahead of time. So we did not put it on the Dropbox or anything, but
can you
just see it? We can put it up.
Well, you can, oh yeah, do you have them? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so these are the actual ones. Yes. Great. So we added the 2, okay, great. Okay, everyone see the motion that it was read earlier by Evan? And how do we handle the variance situation? We're not approving that part of the building. How are we dealing with that?
We're asking him to delete that part from the plans. So in the record of this application, there will be no additions to the building that are within the setback areas. But if he succeeds in getting the variance, he could modify this approval with a special exception modification. It could be done by staff. That's okay with the commission, depending upon getting a variance for that addition to the building within the setback area.
Okay, great. Okay, everyone understand this?
Yep.
And anyone want to make a motion to approve the application in accordance with the findings and conditions that are set forth right now on the screen in front of us?
Joe Vayuso approves with those conditions.
And motion made by Joe Vayuso. Is there a second?
Marcy Paluzzi seconds it.
Second by Marcy. Any further discussion? All in favor? John, are you in favor?
John Lust in favor.
Joe Chadwick.
Chadwick in the affirmative.
Joe Vayuso.
Joe Vayuso in favor.
Marcy.
Marcy's in favor.
And Chair is also in favor, so that application is approved. So let's go down to old business. Item number 1, we have a set for public hearing on May 6th. Also, that's 2 and 3 and 4. I think, is that right? Or what brings us up to date on item number 4?
Yeah.
So that's the restaurant cafe in town.
Sure. Harry Smith, Town Planner. With respect to this application, there was a discussion at the last meeting, which we still have hanging around the agenda under other business, about possible changes to parking requirements in the Main Street overlay district. So based on the discussion, I put together a draft zoning regulation amendment and discussed that with the chair, and to make a date for referral to the DEP, we filed it yesterday. So we do have an application together for that would address everything was brought up at the conclusion of the discussion at the last meeting. So I will route that around. The commission can certainly modify that at the public hearing if you'd like. But since it's an application currently before you, it's going to need a public hearing. I didn't want to say anything else about it. So the plan for that is to have a public hearing on that at the May 6th meeting, assuming we receive comments from the Regional Planning Agency and the DEP before the public hearing. It may need to be put off to the May 20th meeting, depending on that, because require referrals, which if we do get the comments, I think we could go ahead without the whole time frame, but the statutory time frame is provided for. So the application for the restaurant could be heard at the same time. We would just need to sequence the approval, so that's effective after the regulation amendment, should the commission choose to adopt it. And you want to go ahead with the application for the restaurant cafe.
Okay, that sounds great. So with luck, we can be able to do it at our next meeting, both the zoning text amendment and and this restaurant.
Yeah, I will get in touch with the referring bodies and let them know we're trying to get a public hearing together for the 6th. And since we have an extra week between meetings, hopefully we can get that together in time. Okay, great. Excellent.
Okay, so next one was item number 5, 48 Leeds Island Road. This is special exception modification. This is, I think the person wasn't at the last meeting. Is someone here for that one?
I believe Mr. Peck is here, and I made him a co-host, so I believe he should be able to speak to the application.
Yes. Yep, I am here. I will make this brief. Let me share my screen quick. All right, can you all see this set of plans here?
Yep. Before you go ahead, though, I don't know if we, if the public hearing waiver was voted on the last meeting. I can't recall. Can you, Evan?
I don't think it was.
Okay, so I think to be sure we should do that before you go ahead, because.
Okay.
Is there a motion to waive the public hearing for this appears to be a rather minor special exception modification for this application?
Joe Vayuso, so move.
Motion made by Joe Vayuso. Is there a second?
Seconds.
Go ahead. Give it to Chadwick for the second. Any further discussion? All in favor, John?
John Lust in favor.
Joe Chadwick?
Chadwick in favor.
Joe Vayuso?
Vayuso in favor.
Marcy?
Marcy's in favor.
Chair is also in favor. Public hearings waived. You can proceed.
Thank you.
All righty, thank you very much. Dave Peck here. I am the agent representing Syed Sami, the owner of this gas station. As mentioned, we're just proposing some very minor site and design updates to ExxonMobil's new Synergy brand standards. So we wanted to install these red architectural elements adjacent to the gas dispensers and on the canopy columns, as well as refacing the existing freestanding sign and upgrading the pricers to LED digits. So everything else is on site is going to be remaining the same. For the freestanding sign, we are going to be using the existing cabinets, existing attachments, and the existing electrical. The faces just pop out and we're putting new faces in, and the LED digits just are retrofit right into the existing electrical.
Thank you, Mr. Peck. So what are these red things? I'm just kidding.
They're, so Exxon It's part of ExxonMobil's new brand standards. So sites that are ExxonMobil's, they sign contracts to sell Synergy gasoline. And I don't know if it's that common out there, but in the Midwest where we live, a lot of customers look for the red architectural elements that you see right here on this first page that signify that a gas station is selling that Synergy gas. And the gas has been engineered to help clean up intake valves, improve gas mileage and performance of car engines.
Okay, so it's a branding thing.
Correct. Yep.
Okay.
Quick question.
Sure.
Does Synergy gas do anything to help the environment?
I don't think it does anything to help the environment, but it makes your car more fuel efficient. So.
Well, that helps the environment.
That helps the environment.
Exactly.
Okay, Evan, did you prepared the staff report on this?
I did. Mr. Peck reviewed most of the information in my staff report. Site plan modifications to add new lighting fixtures and additional small architectural features. No changes to the bulk requirements. No landscaping plan. Grading, utilities and drainage plan, soil erosion sediment control plan were submitted because no major alterations to the site are proposed. The applicant satisfies the parking requirements. The submitted site plan shows 7 spaces. However, 1 or 2 spaces are currently occupied by a dumpster. The applicant satisfies the exterior lighting standards of section 6.7 with 2 exceptions. The first one is the manufacturer's cut sheets of the proposed light fixtures must clearly indicate the fixture's IES cutoff classification and the lamp type and lumen rating. And then we'd also like to know how much of the exterior lighting will remain after business hours for security purposes. Staff recommendations. We have 1 finding. Should the commission approve the site plan modification, the following conditions should be applied. Condition 1, dumpsters and other provisions of refuse shall move to the area designated on the site plan as trash enclosure. And 2, to reduce glare, all fixtures shall be demonstrated to meet the IES cutoff full definition unless they are emergency lights or very low level accent lights, meaning they are less than 900 lumen output or less than an incandescent 100 watt light bulb. And that's it.
Thank you, Evan. Questions, comments by anyone?
Harry Smith, Town Planner. I think you can probably dispense with the finding, so that's not.
Okay.
Yeah, so you just have the 2 conditions, actually.
Sure. Marcy, you're unmuted. You're muted. Why is Marcy muted?
Because I didn't unmute. I'm sorry.
Okay.
It's getting late. Well, I appreciate the branding. I think it's a minimal improvement. Just because it's fresh in my mind with our other discussions in this area tonight. Why aren't we looking at opportunities to dress up landscaping, since it is right off the interchange and does represent a gateway? Don't mean to be a pain in the neck to Mobile, but this seems like the perfect opportunity to start to set, some of that effort in motion.
I don't know. Are they non-compliant with the landscaping?
I do not know off the top of my head.
Harry Smith, Town Planner. Potentially, in the past, the commission has kind of tailored the amount of improvements you've required of applicants who are non-conforming, pre-existing non-conforming, to kind of the scope of what they're doing. So if somebody's doing a major redevelopment on a property, you've gone more into landscaping and redesigning the site and asking for that kind of thing. But if somebody's doing something sort of akin to a more minor change with the lighting and and what's like, these sort of marketing architectural details, you've not gone that far. So that's just sort of the context of it. It's a judgment call on the commission's part, really.
We are messing with the lights, right? And we're getting the trash, the dumpster in the right locations. That we're
right.
Those are the things we're doing, right? The two things.
Well, it would just be nice to see it evaluated to know, what would conform with zoning and what's missing. Whether we require them to do it is a different, because they are a major, mobile is a major marketing
you're right.
entity, and why do they get a free pass? I'm not opposed to what they're doing, but
no, I mean, I don't disagree with you. I will say that the site's kind of limited once you're talking about the maneuverability of some of the fueling trucks and just vehicles on the property. It's not really that big a service station. Could you do something with planters and some strategic elements for landscaping? Yeah.
I'm not saying it
still
would
wouldn't make you compliant with the regs, but yeah, they definitely could do an effort in that direction. I think you're right. Yeah.
Well, do you want to add a condition? I don't know. I mean, or is it just so marginal that?
Personally, I think given what we're talking about with the whole area, it's important to add a condition and to start to, we've got a lot of messy sites. We want to, increase the image, and there's a lot of trucks going through there. I mean, I think landscaping is important to promote in that exit 56 corridor for all projects, not just, I'm not trying to just pick on one gas station, but gas stations are notorious for having limited space because of car maneuverability. And I certainly empathize with that, but I think that we have an obligation to try to, Fred's laughing at me, but I mean, I think it's
I mean, you could propose a condition requiring landscape improvements to, as discussed at the meeting, to the satisfaction of staff or the commission. And that could be understood that we're talking about something minor that would not inhibit vehicle maneuverability, but would enhance the, the attractiveness of the site, particularly its location as a gateway to the town off the highway. Does that make sense?
I would say something.
That makes sense. That's good.
Okay.
Yeah, that's okay.
I agree. That's good.
Okay, then. So, what's we had 3 conditions then, right?
We would have a third condition, yeah. As
dumpster lighting and landscaping. So what's the landscaping one, I guess? Let's see.
Boy, I don't know if I can do it again.
Additional landscaping.
Additional landscaping shall, a landscaping plan should be developed to reflect the discussion at the public hearing to the satisfaction of the town planner or planning and zoning commission.
Except we waive the public hearing, but that's right. I mean, at the
the application consideration by the commission. Discussion at the application consideration.
Where's our applicant? Where's Mr.
Dave Peck here. I live in Indiana, so I cannot come out to Connecticut.
No, you're not gonna.
You don't need to.
No, somebody's coming in here to put the new stuff in. So I don't know. You're having someone.
There's a site plan somewhere.
Yeah, this can be done remotely. We can look at some areas that we could enhance, maybe with a few planters or something. I mean, I think that's what seems to be feasible without impacting vehicle maneuverability on the property the way it's laid out already.
Yeah, Dave Peck here. That is fine with me.
Okay.
That sounds good.
Thank you.
Okay, everyone understand that? So someone want to make a motion to approve it now with a third condition, the added landscaping one, to the satisfaction of the town engineer, or the understanding that it's not affecting, vehicle maneuverability, but also consistent with as a gateway to exit 56 entry to the town of Grant.
And I think you meant town planner, right? Not town
planner. Town planner, right. Exactly what. So who wants to make that motion?
Joe Vayuso makes that motion.
Joe does. Okay, motion made by Joe Vayuso. Is there a second?
So second, Marcy.
Second by Marcy. Further discussion. All in favor, John.
John Lust in favor.
Joe Chadwick.
Chadwick in the affirmative.
Joe Vayuzo.
Vayuzo in favor.
Marcy.
Marcy's in favor.
Chair is also in favor, so approved. Okay. Congratulations. New business. Nothing, right? I mean,
We do actually have the application I mentioned earlier, which is a commission application. So by action of law, it's received tonight. It's we can add it to the agenda if you like or not. It's zoning regulation amendment to amend sections 5, 10, and 6.5 regarding parking requirements.
Right.
It's application number 21-4.2.
Right. Okay. That's the amendments. Again, we talked about making it easier to park in downtown, limiting the parking requirements. This does that. This is essentially the one we talked about earlier for the new restaurant that would allow them to go in, and under our new regulations, we'd have authority to, modify the parking or, in light of surrounding circumstances and other things. So that's what that is. Great.
Yeah, I'll route that around.
Right. And then other business. We talked about item number 1 because we're moving forward on that. Then we got 2, 3, and 4, which are bonds.
On item number 2, we have a memorandum from our zoning enforcement officer, Daniel Brennan, with respect to request to bond 28 Lamontra Lane, Lot 7. The developers requested to post a bond for outstanding landscaping in lieu of full project completion. He's proposed a bond amount of $4,000 to cover landscaping, lawn establishment, and the driveway apron. The zoning enforcement officer is recommending the commission approve the bond at the proposed amount of $4,000.
Is there a motion to approve that bond?
So moved. John Lust.
Moved by John, second.
Second, Marcy Paluzzi.
Second, Marcy. For discussion, all in favor? John, in favor?
John Lust in favor.
Joe Chadwick?
Chadwick in favor.
Joe Vayuzo?
Vayuzo in favor.
Marcy?
Marcy's in favor.
And chair's also in favor. Next one, Harry.
Next one is for 8 Todd's Hill Road. Request to bond driveway apron, landscaping, grading, and seeding for new single-family house located at 81 Todd's Hill Road, Lot 8 of the subdivision. That was approved there about a year ago. So recommended the commission approve a bond in the amount of $4,047.50 for the driveway apron and landscaping. This is a memorandum from Daniel Brennan, zoning enforcement officer, dated April 14th, 2021.
I want to make a motion to approve that bond.
Can I ask where we came up with 50 cents?
I think that's how the estimate came up. The 50 cents comes from lawn seed, which was 250 square yards at $1.50 per square yard. So that came out to $322.50. That's where the 50 cents comes from.
That's crazy.
So Marcy makes that motion.
Motion made by Marcy. Is there a second?
Joe Vayuzo seconds.
Second by Joe. Further discussion? All in favor? John?
John Lust in favor.
Joe Chadwick?
Chadwick in favor.
Joe Vayuzo?
Vayuzo in favor.
Marcy?
Marcy's in favor.
Chair's also in favor. Next one, Harry.
Next one is for 159 Cherry Hill Road, Lot 15. This is for outstanding driveway apron and landscaping, grading, and seeding. Recommended the commission approve a bond in the amount of $3,850 for the driveway apron and landscaping. This is from Daniel Brennan, zoning enforcement officer, dated April 14th, 2021.
So we'll make a motion to approve that bond.
So moved, Chadwick.
Motion by Joe Chadwick. Is there a second?
So second, John.
Second, John. Further discussion. All in favor? John?
John Lust in favor.
Joe Chadwick?
Chadwick in favor.
Joe Vayuzo?
Vayuzo in favor.
Marcy?
Marcy's in favor.
Chair's also in favor. Planners report.
I think I'll defer that to the next meeting.
Okay, great. Any other business, anyone? Someone make a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Joe Vayuzo.
There you go.
Give it to John, second by Joe Vayuzo.
There you go.
Any further discussion? John, are you in favor of adjournment?
John Lust in favor.
Joe Chadwick.
Chadwick, yes.
Joe Vayuzo.
Vayuso, yes.
Marcy.
Marcy, yes.
And Chair is also in favor of adjourning. So with that, thank you, everyone, and good night.
Good night.
Thank you.
Good night.
This program was brought to you in part through the support of the Town of Brantford. Watch town meetings and other videos on demand at BrantfordTV.org.